Let's do this. Get ready for the Dirt Life Show.
Yeah. Welcome to episode 87 of the Dirt Life Show. We are fired up on this Memorial Day of 2021. It's a fantastic day. We got an awesome show for you guys. Man, it's going to be a really cool show. We got some guests calling in. We're going to do a little tribute to the Memorial Day with Robert Blanton today of Warfighter Made. And in studio, to my left, we have none other than Matt Martelli. Matt is a filmmaker, producer, director. He's a multi-time award winner with him and his brother. Now he's an off-road event owner and entrepreneur still. Matt, along with his brother, operate the Mint 400 and the UTV World Championship, both awesome races. I've never been to the Mint, but I have been to the World Championship. And along with a few other media brands, he's got some awesome stories that we're going to talk about today with some projects that he's done. Welcome, Matt Martelli, to the show. What's up, bud?
No, thanks, dude.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me out. Glad to see somebody else is working today.
I know, right? We went to lunch and up in Canyon Lake, and there was all kinds of people partying on their boats, man.
That's what you're supposed to do today.
So jealous.
Celebrate freedom, right?
Exactly. And so one of the guys that's going to call in today in a few minutes here, Robert Blanton from Warfighter Made, like I just said, he's actually celebrating too. So we'll see how many drinks he's tilted back already.
Well, he deserves whatever he's drinking right now. He's one of those people who's not only put his life on the line for our freedom, but also helps out a ton of other warfighters. So.
Oh, man. He does such a great job, and we've had him on the show a million times, and you've done some awesome stuff with him. We're not going to get into it right now, but we have an award over there called the Perseverance Award that he does for you guys at your UTV World Championship. That's a really cool award that we'll talk about a little later. All right, well, he's going to call in just a second, so let's get through all the sponsor plugs real quick.
Let's do it.
Thank you very much to all the guys that support the show. Every one of you guys in the audience that is a part of this show, we love you guys. Please always tune in Monday nights at 5 p.m. We're live, always YouTube, Facebook. You can always catch us on any of the social media platforms afterwards, as well as iTunes, Spotify, any type of media consumption that you can do. We're on all of them. So please pay attention to any of those. Subscribe to us. Have a bunch of fun. And you'll really learn a lot with episodes like this. Matt has called in before with Alex Stryler when we had Alex on. I still get messages from all the stuff, all the tips and tricks that you guys have provided, man.
That's great. I think he's going to call in tonight, too. So,
oh, right on. Yeah, so that'll be cool. And we also have Jim Beaver going to call in tonight, too, right?
That's right.
So that'll be cool. And Jim's going to call probably after the commercial break. So he'll have a little bit more time if he's out drinking.
I know he's hanging with his family, but he's pretty pro, so he'll probably wait. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, right? And thank you to all of our sponsors, man. The guys over at KMC Wheels, Wheel Pros, and EFX Tires, they've been supporters of the show since day one. So thank you very much to those guys. I know Ryan and all those guys were having a good time today. So please keep having a good time, boys. We look forward to hanging out with you guys at the Baja 500, which we're going to start pre-running next week, man.
Yeah, some guys are already pre-running it. The feedback I've gotten was it's a really nice course. There's a lot of really cool new stuff to it. A lot
of new stuff?
Yeah, there's a few new things, so people are pretty stoked on it. And quite a bit of pavement, but that's part of the deal getting around down there now. Those guys have their work cut out for them because they've got to...
Because of the growth in Mexico?
Because of the growth and just managing the ejidos. I mean, when we do the Mint, we've got one BLM to deal with, and that's it. And they have probably a couple hundred different landowners that they've got to deal with down there. So
yeah, it's just a big old mess that they got to deal with. But it's cool that they're having that race, especially in these times, man. I can't wait to get down there. This is actually going to be my first time I've ever gone to a Baja desert race.
Really? You're a virgin?
I know. I was thinking about it the other day, too. I was like, I'm going to get so much shit from everybody when I'm down there.
But that's great. I mean, that's one of the things that we talk about all the time is that this culture – desert racing culture started in '67.
Yep.
Almost simultaneously with the Baja run and then the Mint later that year. So it was born in Baja. You definitely have to go there.
Dude, I can't wait. And plus, I'm a little bit of a taco fan, so it'll be cool to get down there and just hang with everybody.
Yeah, you're in trouble. You're gonna stack on some weight. So start working on your cardio now.
Is it like when people go on a cruise, they know that they're gonna gain 10 pounds when they come back?
Yeah. I mean, you sit chasing and you're sitting in front of a taco stand with cheese and carne carne asada tacos.
Can't
for
pass
hours.
it up.
What are you doing? You're just
Thank you to the guys over at Zollinger Racing Products. I don't know if you know them. You've probably seen a lot of the stuff that Travis Zollinger's doing, but I always say it. He's an innovator in the UTV industry now. The quality of products that are coming out of that shop are fantastic. He does a very, very good job with everything that he does, supporting racers, supporting enthusiasts. So please go check him out at ZollingerRacingProducts.com. If you want to feel like purchasing some and saving a whole bunch of money, use the code DIRTLIFE and grab some of those awesome products. Thank you very much to the guys over at Shock Therapy. Last week we did a feed over there with those guys. Man, it was fun. Those guys do such a great job these days, not only with suspension, but they do a great job with the media.
You know what's funny about those guys is I can't speak highly enough of them. People don't understand how big suspension plays in your vehicle, right? You know, stock vehicles are set up kind of neutral. So once you get your stock UTV, figure out what who you're carrying in it and what your regular setup's going to be. Go to those guys, have them set up your shocks. It's a world of difference.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever you can afford too. So, and you can also use the code DIRTLIFE and save a whole bunch of money at shocktherapist.com. And or you can just call them up and tell them that Dirt Life sent you. Thank you to the guys over at Cryo Heat. Josh and all his boys do such a fantastic job. They're kind of down by you. Well, your old office, right?
Yeah, right up the street from us.
Yeah.
Another great company from Offroad making products better.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So you can also use the code DIRTLIFE at solderweld.com. Get yourself a off-road repair kit. You can get one of these welding blankets. You can wrap it around. Those things are badass, man. Some of these races that Matt puts on, like the Mint 400 and UTV World Championship, we've seen racers not be able to finish, and they could have potentially finished if they had an off-road repair kit in their vehicle because they could have bonded some metal and not had to sit out there in the middle of the desert. So you can use the code DIRTLIFE at solderweld.com and get yourself hooked up with some awesome product from those guys. Man, today is going to be awesome. One of the things I wanted to talk about before Robert calls in, we only got a couple minutes.
Let me add one thing there.
Yeah.
People, vote with your dollar and go support the brands that support us. It's super important to the culture of off-road to support the brands that support us. So please go out there, spend your dollars with the brands that support off-road racing and support Dirt Life as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt, for saying that. I really appreciate it. He's totally right, though. A lot of these guys are actually crossover guys. Shock Therapy was a big sponsor of the UTV World Championship. They went out there with their helicopter. I felt like a rock star because they followed me around a little bit.
They're sponsor of the Mint as well.
So all of the things that you guys do to help support them supports us and supports the whole industry. So it's one big circle. Hey, did you see Toby Price's new rig that he's got?
So sick.
Dude, pretty rad, right?
I'm a designer, so like I'm hard to impress, right? And so when I saw the whole white livery, I was texting him like, good job, dude.
Dude, he nailed it, right?
I don't know how he got Red Bull to allow them to.
It was just for the release.
Oh, that was.
They had to put the blue on for the race.
Really?
Yeah, it was only a 30-second wrap. Like they just did it for that day, and then they had to shred it.
I want a little mini version of that truck. It looked badass.
It's so cool, man. And even to have the Mitsubishi, like the hard lines and the cuts on the body was sick.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I love about off-road racing culture is that we've had every manufacturer involved at some point or another, right? And there's room for every manufacturer, every type of vehicle, diesel power, electric power, what do you got? Bring it and prove the technology.
That's one of the things that I want to talk about today too, is like Extreme E and stuff like that, because all of it goes back to everything that you do, that I do. We get to talk about all this cool stuff because everything crosses over.
Yeah, totally.
So it'll be cool to talk about all that stuff. But on the Toby Price subject, my buddy Joe Whining, who I grew up with, you probably know Joe pretty well. He's going to be a co-driver, and he's the manager of the truck, so he gets to work on the truck. But I grew up playing Hot Wheels in the dirt with that kid in Arizona. Nice. So it's kind of crazy that we have that same, just dirt life of just ingrained in us, right?
Well, and that's part of the culture of Australia. I mean, those guys, there's a point where there are barely any roads, right? Yep. So just like here, it's like dirt roads. How are you going to deal with them? And then beyond that, they've got a lot of land there we can get wild in.
Hey, so we got, looks like we got Robert Bland on the line. What's up, Rob?
What's happening?
Hey, turn your phone sideways so we can see a little bit more of that shirt, bud.
I tell you what, I am a Rolex wearing, private jet flying, custom suit wearing, Woo!
Yeah, buddy. Hey, well, first, before we get into having a little 10-minute conversation with you, thank you very, very much for everything that you do, man. On this Memorial Day, it's hard to think about all the I don't even like talking about, like, it's a celebration day in my opinion, and I think Rob would agree.
I'll tell you what, man. I mean, really, we're enjoying this day for our brothers and sisters that can't. Freedom's not free, and today's the day that we remember those that sacrifice themselves for the greatest country in the world, which is, the United States.
I couldn't agree more, man.
Hoorah!
Yep, hoorah. So what do you got going on today? Well, actually, before that, just in case everybody knows who Rob is, but just in case anybody in the audience doesn't know, Rob is the co-founder of Warfighter Made, and he's the face of Warfighter Made usually. We have the Perseverance Award over here to the left. Thank you very much, Rob, for supplying Matt with the ability to give that away last year, and I was fortunate enough to win it.
Hey, man, you earned it.
Unfortunately, right? But yeah, we really like to see that because that commemorates the people that are still here, and it's fantastic that you guys do all that stuff. Warfighter Made is a great organization that helps veterans, wounded, PTSD, everything like that. So what are you talking your homies and all that stuff today? Like everybody having a good time?
Yeah, today's a Remembrance Day. Constantly on the phone today, talking to brothers that we might have served in combat with, or just people we served with, and we're just kind of sharing the love and remembering those that aren't here.
That's really cool, man. And what do you guys usually do? You tilt a couple back?
Oh yeah, a little tequila and lemonade right now. A little.
Dude,
some friends. And
hey, so
just,
one of our buddies, my crew chief, Brian Lopez, would have just called you out because I saw that steel pinky come up, dude. Woo!
I tell you what, man.
You can't really call Rob on that. It's like he's going to do whatever he wants to do, right?
You could call Rob on it, but dude, he's so hard on Brian, man. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Hey, you can call me out all you want. You can make fun of my strawberry rendezvous, which is my favorite ice cream. Pinkies up.
Hey, awesome, man.
I don't care.
We're so stoked to have you. I love your T-shirt, and I'm glad that you're having a good time celebrating today. It's pretty sweet to see. I was able to go to the Canyon Lake to have lunch with the boys here at IMG Motorsports, and unfortunately, Matt and I are both working today. You're having a little bit of fun working with us, but it's really good to see that everybody's out doing stuff, man. So who do you got with you?
Oh, the wife is out here, and we're with family right now, and just enjoying the day for those that can't.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And Rob's not only the face of Warfighter Made, but we made him the face of our military challenge recently that we run at the Mint 400 with the idea that we're raising funds and giving it to organizations like Warfighter Made.
Yep.
And then we're raising awareness the fact that we are still in combat. We are still in multiple wars, and we've got guys coming back every day that need our help and our support. As well as a fact that I uncovered as I was doing research on the history of off-road racing, which is that this sport was founded by veterans. World War II vets came back, did the Peninsula run. World War II vets came back and started the Mint 400. So
Yep.
They've always been involved, and we just wanted to recognize them as part of our DNA.
It's pretty cool. Rob, have you done any of the military stuff with Matt? Have you got to sit in the driver's seat yet?
Well, I mean, what I'm kind of bringing to the table is I'm just kind of being the go-between for the Mint units that are talking very military specific. That happens to be a language that I speak, so I'm just kind of helping them out and just being that liaison between the two to ensure we get mass participation between those that want to participate, and then there's two classes. There's the current military class, And then there's the vintage military class, which Warfighter Made is entering a number of vehicles in, and bringing a whole bunch of vets out, and we're just ready to have a good time.
Matt, how's the acceptance of that class been?
It's been huge. I mean, this whole thing was born 3 years ago when we had a special forces guy that I didn't even know. He was a friend of my good friend Josh Koscheck, the MMA fighter, and he asked me. He said, "Is it okay if I do some fundraising with our race team?" I said, "Sure, yeah, that sounds rad." And at the end of it, we're sitting down having a beer after the mint. And he goes, "Man, we raised 10 grand."
No way.
And I was like, "That's remarkable. How do we weaponize this and make it bigger and better?" And so last year we launched the military challenge, and once we launched it, we started getting contacted by active duty military. And one of them was 5th Special Forces Group, and they called us up, and they were like, "Hey, man, can we parachute our vehicles in with live ammo and shoot rounds?" And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can't insure that, but I'll try. So, I went and got with my brother, and we figured out a way to get it done. And unfortunately, we had to eliminate the parachuting in and the hot weapons, but we got everything else approved. So it was really cool. They came out and raced, and people were stoked. So they did 2 laps around the course, started in the rear. And the other cool thing was, not only was everybody super excited they were involved in the race, but they just kind of acted as retrieval. They cruised around the course in their vehicles and pulled everybody off the course and helped people out. So now, after people have seen that, we've been contacted by lots of different divisions of the military and different vehicles that are active duty. These are vehicles that they're using in combat as they are right now. So that's one of the classes. And then the other class, which, Rob's being a little bashful, they kind of founded by restoring vehicles and racing in NORA and some of the other races, which is the vintage military vehicle class, which there's obviously, as you know, there's thousands and thousands of these vehicles sitting out there that can be raced with a little bit of prep and safety. So we're excited about it, and we've got a lot of interest right now.
Rob, can you describe one of those vehicles? Because there's a bunch out there, isn't there?
Yeah, well, for instance, we have an M998 Humvee, a high mobility multi-wheeled vehicle. It's the basically, if the Jeep won World War II, the Humvee won Desert Storm, and it had a significant impact on the global war on terror. We were lent one of those by a off-road team called Roth Sport Racing, and then we have our Flyer Defense light strike vehicle, which oddly enough, there's only 2 running examples in the U.S. One belongs to Warfighter Made, and one belongs to our board member who made it possible for us to get the other one. And our Flyer, what we call Flyer 22, we gave it the number 22 to, basically bring awareness to the 22 veterans that commit suicide every single day. So that's kind of a number that we're synonymous with, or that we use. And that's what we do. We bring a bunch of veterans out, and, we had a great time at the Mint. It was a lot of fun. It was even better that we finished first and second in the class, and it was a good time.
Man, it's super cool to hear all that stuff. Like, all of us racers, we get caught up in our own programs, right?
Sure.
But then you understand what all of these other people are doing and the meaning behind it. Like
Sure.
a little kid racing, there's meaning behind it because he's learning stuff. But there's a lot of meaning behind everything that Rob does, and the people that he encourages to get out there. It's actually helping improve their life.
Absolutely. Look, I'll always say this, that the act of off-road racing is a war simulation. It brings people together, and it tests people, and that's a good thing, because we're a little too comfortable right now in our country and in our world, and we need these things to challenge us and to challenge our friends. But in particular today, why this is an important conversation is everybody's going to do their Facebook post and, put their things up and, their tributes to all the veterans. And that's totally cool. But the thing I would challenge everybody with is, it's time to put up, get on warfightermade.com and donate. These guys are doing incredible work. I've personally seen the work, been a little bit of a part of it firsthand, and there's no administration costs. There's no CEO that's secretly making $3 million. Every dollar is used on helping veterans. So today is the day, get off your butt. Go onto the website, donate $5, $50, $500. If you're a company, $5,000 will be fine. Every single dollar is going to help, and we appreciate every single dollar. That's what this is all about, is helping our fellow Americans, the people who have protected us, and we get to walk around in this great country and do all these radical things because of them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I would second what Matt just said. I've donated to Warfighter Made as well, and I think you guys should too. So, hey, Rob, I don't want to cut you off. I know that we got another caller calling in just a couple minutes here, and I think you're probably thirsty, huh?
Oh, I'll tell you what. Hold on, man. Hold on. Yep. Thanks, guys.
Hey, what are you drinking? What's in there?
Tequila and lemonade.
Ooh,
Nice.
That sounds delicious right now.
I'll be stopping by on my way home.
I hope you do.
Hey, buddy. Hey, have a good one, Rob. We really appreciate you calling in. And again, thank you for everything that you do, boss.
Thanks, brother.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
We'll see you. Man, no matter what happens, when you talk to Rob, you always get a smile on your face.
No, absolutely. But, I think that's true of a lot of the warriors who come back from combat. They just have a different reference for what life means.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm glad that Rob's out there having a good time with his family and enjoying everything. We're going to have Alex Stryler calling in just a couple minutes here. Thank you very much, Rob. We really appreciate it. One of the things that I think is most fantastic about the Warfighter Made organization is they don't just do stuff at the races like what we talked about. Every single day they have the ability for veterans to come down, work on things at the shop, and just join in on life.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because when I first met Rob and he was explaining to me what they do, to be frank, it sounded like BS to me. I was like, he kept talking about adrenaline therapy, and I'm like, whatever that is, dude.
Yeah.
But we were really fortunate to do a project together where we built some vehicles for veterans who were missing their limbs, were missing their legs, right? And we took these guys on a trip, and I saw it firsthand, and it's real. It's one of the best things for these guys, just to have a few minutes in their life where they're not stressed and not worried about paying bills.
There it is.
Alex, yeah.
Really cool thing that they're doing, and again, please support them. Go spend a couple of bucks, go to warfightermade.com and, put
I think it's .org, but yeah.
.org.
Yeah, warfightermade.org and go donate over there.
Yeah.
Hey, we got Alex Stryler on the line. What's up, Alex? How are you?
Hey, Matt. How are you guys?
Good.
Man, it looks like you guys are over there in a nice man cave. What's going on with you?
I am. Yeah, it's very appropriate how you guys are talking about Memorial Day and helping veterans. I got off the phone yesterday with the president of an organization that brings backstage tours to Fort Irwin. Fort Irwin, the National Training Center out in the desert north of Barstow. And a few years ago, when I was with Lucas, I took a group of 30 VIPs on 3 Blackhawks from Glendale to Fort Irwin. We were met by the commanding officer. We went behind the scenes, watched actual war games, and then we got to drive in Humvees, drive in tanks, shoot a 50 millimeter caliber machine gun.
Nice.
We ate MRI. We did the whole experience. And what the military does is unreal. They do not get enough appreciation. So yesterday I got off the phone, and I'm pleased to say we're going to do it again in November.
Ooh, that's cool. Nice. Yeah, man, that sounds exciting.
Blackhawks from Vegas to Fort Irwin.
I'm in for everything except for the MRIs. So I've had those before. Not really high on my food list.
You definitely like shooting the 50 cal, though.
For sure. For sure. That 50 cal, I can't remember. It was like $12 a bullet or $15 a bullet.
No
so
way.
You can count them, yeah.
Holy smokes. Dude, ammo is so expensive these days. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, Alex. We really appreciate it. I know you got a lot of cool stuff going on. Let's see here. We need to put Alex's overlay on here, too. Man, you've been busy. You have your own new website called meetthesponsors.com.
MeetTheSponsors.com is brand new. It's just a few weeks old. I am letting racers who need sponsorship meet actual sponsors and hear from them what it takes to get sponsored by their brands.
That's pretty cool. That's right up Matt's alley, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex and I do a lot of work together. We've been friends for a long time and always on the constant exchange of ideas and how to engage sponsors and help athletes and racers connect and have meaningful, valuable relationships.
Yeah. Thank you for calling in when Alex had his episode as well. So what are the couple of the stories that you have maybe in the relationship with Matt that some people don't know about, Alex?
Oh, man. We go way back. Matt, how long ago was it when you and I spoke at, I don't even remember what that conference was. It was probably 15 years ago, all about X Games. It was at X Games, right before X Games. And the lady who ran X Games was there. She spoke right before us. And as she's talking, she stops, she ducks behind the podium and sneezed and then jumps back up again.
Yeah.
It was freaking hilarious.
I do remember that. But
we talked about action sports and marketing.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get the video off my mind. I couldn't stop laughing.
Right? Yeah, I do remember that. I think it was before that we met during Core in Chula Vista. Had been the first time. So really cool.
Yeah.
Rob McCachran always talks about that race. It makes me so jealous that I haven't been down there and seen that. He was like, dude, the track was sick. There was so much
Well, look, we got to give a lot of credit to the Baldwins and Jim for putting the level of money he put up at that point was unprecedented.
Oh.
So it was like, hey, I want to build a track. Well, how do we make it the best track that we can possibly make? And that one was designed and built by a friend of ours, Tony Vanello, who was the race director at the time. And
I've heard his name.
And, what's unique about that situation is Tony was actually a vehicle builder. So he really understood the dynamics of the vehicle. So he built this amazing track that had a lot of elevation changes and really showcased, in particular, what Pro 4s were capable of. Now, if you were trying to drive a buggy on that course, it was a little scary. But if you were in a Pro 4, it was spectacular.
How do you think a UTV would have done?
I think it would have done well. I think it would have done very well. I mean, UTV's just an incredible, durable platform and really can handle any type of terrain.
Yeah, exactly. When you talk about that stuff, one thing that comes to my mind since both of you guys are joining us today is how did branding and how did the promotion of those events differ from the way it is in current day?
I mean, I would say...
Back then, not the way it is today. Back then, it was all word of mouth. Social was being developed. And it started with Matt, in my opinion. I'm not saying this because Matt's on. I've written a book, and you guys can read it. It's in there as well, that the Gymkhana videos literally launched the viral recognition of turning yourself into a brand using videos, even if you don't race.
Right.
You can be a non now and get famous and go viral through really clever social. And I think that back then they didn't have it. Back then, you raced, you won, you got the publicity. Today, you don't necessarily have to win anymore. You have to be really good at social. Sure. That's what Matt does best.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that. But I think to his point is back, and again, giving Jim Baldwin some credit is they were spending serious amounts of money on television promotion and radio promotion and print promotion. And, for the time, it worked. There were some big crowds.
Because that's as big a word of mouth as you could get at the time.
At the time, yeah. That was pre-YouTube. So we were just starting to break into that digital realm. And, into the Gymkhana stuff, it was really funny for us because we already had a foot planted in off-road. And we were doing all this stuff in rally. Mm-hmm. And the whole time I was like, this is cool. I'm glad you guys think this car is badass, but you wait till I show you a trophy truck or a Pro 4.
Yeah.
It's going to melt your mind, So, it's just, things continue. And today, what worked, 10 years ago isn't isn't what's going to work today.
Well, I think that's where my question leads is I wanted to get into with both of you guys. I don't know if we even have enough time for it, but the evolution of that, like social media isn't going to go away, but it's ever evolving and it's ever changing. And what was this, 10 years ago when we're talking about Jim Baldwin, or when was that?
Oh, it's probably 15 now, but yeah.
So in the next 15 years, it was when, Alex?
Oh,
Can you please say that again?
2005 through 2008.
Okay, so you're right, about 15 years ago. So I would like to understand, and give a little bit of advice, or at least a trend-setting statement to some of the people, mostly the kids that are working on their race programs now. And maybe this is something that Alex talks about on his meetthesponsors.com, but 15 years is a long time. And with how quick all of this stuff changes, it's going to be a completely different world, much like it is today compared to what it was in 2005.
Sure. I'll start it off and then TO it over to Alex, but it does, everything does change, but then there's certain things that don't. And the things that don't change is quality, right? And good storytelling and good content. So some of the films that influenced me are still powerful today, right?
100%.
So I think that a lot of times people get caught up in the medium and they're trying to craft something to work like a trick. If we do this one trick, everybody will click on it.
I hate when people say life hack.
Yeah.
It's no, there's no hack. It's just you go and live your life or do hard work.
So that would be my 2 cents is focus on the idea, the why, the type of content, and, stack good bricks,
right.
Stack strong bricks in your brand.
And the execution.
Yeah. And the execution is very important as well. I constantly watch companies push content out and just completely fail in the execution.
Yeah.
Alex, would you agree?
I totally agree. And a lot of it is because, in a digital world, you can think outside the box. A lot of people don't see where the digital world goes, so you can do things differently today in the media, but back then there was physical tracks. There were no physical tracks in Los Angeles or San Diego, so you had to think outside the box. We built a track in a rock quarry, and it was probably one of the best tracks ever when it comes to off-road short course racing. Then we went to the LA Fairplex. I met a lady on an airplane once, and she saw that I had a logo. I saw that she had the LA Fairplex logo. We sat next to each other. We started talking. That one plane ride led to a race at the LA Fairplex. We went to look at the LA Fairplex, and there was really no place to put a track. So Baldwin kind of looked around and said, well, fuck it, we'll do it in the parking lot. He scraped up the concrete, the asphalt, took the dirt from below the parking lot, built the jumps, and then he just repaved everything when it was over.
And
sometimes you got to think outside
phenomenal.
the box. You don't have to keep doing what everybody's doing. You can try new things.
Absolutely. And it was an amazing track. It was one of those things. I was at Pomona, and I remember in my head, I'm well, I know what the dirt track is at Pomona, and it's not going to work. And so how are they going to do this? And I remember showing up there, and that's actually the track that Johnny Greaves had his infamous crash at. I remember showing up there and just being blown away at what they had done.
I'm blown away right now, and I wasn't even there. That's crazy.
Yeah. But it's what it takes to move things forward. We're not living in a world anymore where you can show somebody, something that's half-assed and be like, what do you think?
Right.
They've already seen monster trucks. They've already seen the Gymkhana films. They've already seen all this stuff.
Yeah, it's there's nothing groundbreaking anymore.
So you have to figure out how to create content that keeps its value, that's compelling, that is groundbreaking, and that's adding value to your brand as a racer and to your sponsors.
One of the things that I'm getting from both of you guys, though, is okay, so the quality of content, bar none, is very important, but there's also a groundwork that needs to be laid down to be able to execute that content or to get the good content. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more with you, Matt, after the commercial break, but if racers or enthusiasts don't have a track, an event, a platform to be able to go execute these things on to expand their social media, then there really isn't anything for them to do.
Well, no, like Alex was saying, here's the paradigm shift is with social media, it's put the power back into the people's hands, right?
So they can find it.
You don't need the track. You can do it in your backyard. You
Got
can
it.
build jumps with your buddy. Just like skateboarding, there could be man-made terrain that already exists that you're hitting as a jump. There's so many different things that we haven't even touched in off-road yet. It's really wide open.
You know this little kid named Ruslan Greasehands?
Yes.
He's a pioneer at that, and I always make fun of him whenever he's around because he doesn't give a shit where he's at. He
Right.
just wants to jump over things.
Right.
Like that's all he cares about doing. He sees something, a rock, he sees a Jeep, whatever, he just wants to jump over it.
You know what? It's funny because like a lot of people started hating on him because of the canal jump, and yeah, it's sketchy, and sure he could have gotten hurt. There's all those things. But, what is the opposite argument of that? You're gonna make 12-year-olds sit on a couch and look at a phone?
Yeah,
That's
eat
not
potato
living.
chips. Yeah, at all.
So it reminds me of skateboard culture in that it evolved based on the environment, and it turned into street skating from ramps and parks, and that's an expression of creativity. I mean, we have the same thing going on in off-road now that we have vehicles like UTVs.
Yep.
That are less expensive, more people can afford them. It's starting to spread in the Midwest and the East Coast and the South and other countries. I can tell you, 2 years ago, I'm in Inner Mongolia. It's like if you could drill a hole through the ground right here, you'd hit Inner Mongolia. It's the furthest point from where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. And I roll out to these dunes, and these guys have UTVs.
That's so awesome.
And it was fun. They were dooning in a very strange way I'd never seen before, but it was still cool. They were doing their thing.
That is super cool. Yeah, and then I guess the adverse effect on the Ruslan comment is that when we were 12 years old, or whatever, Ruslan is now 13, and we just didn't have somebody videotaping us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up skateboarding, so we had at that point we were all filming each other and making films, but it wasn't. We couldn't just put it on the internet. It was a very difficult process and painstaking process. But look, when I was 12, I was skateboarding, dropping into, half pipes and breaking my legs and doing all this same stuff. I wasn't in a cage. I didn't have a helmet.
Yeah.
So you can always look at things and go,
risk factor's still there.
But the reality is like you can't knock that kid's hustle.
No, not at all. I think I was older than Ruslan. I think I was probably 17, but I jumped the canal on a dirt bike. No problem.
That jumping the canal at Glamis is like a rite of passage,
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I'm not saying that because I wanted to say I jumped the canal. I'm just saying it was just never documented, so I didn't get any slack for it.
See, I was always swimming in the canal because that's where the girls were at.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly. So, Alex, one of the things that I wanted to ask you was a little bit more on the business side of things. So when you guys are working on a project together, how is it to work with Matt?
That's the best that there is. When it comes to creativity, art, video, there's nobody better than Mad Media. And he knows this because even when I worked for a competing media company, I would refer business to Matt when my top accounts needed commercials.
Nice.
I sent them Mad Media, every one of them.
Dude, what a nice handshake that would have been.
No, I appreciate that. No, I take that compliment, seriously because we care. I mean, look, we're not a big group. We're a small group, and we're the wrong guys to call if you want to sell a tennis product. I don't know anything about tennis. But for off-road, we love this culture. We want to see the brands succeed. We want to see the racers succeed. We want to see this whole culture succeed.
Yeah.
So whatever part we can play.
There's one thing, Matt, you always say, which you've taught, you taught me in the sense that you said it so many times that now I say it and I repeat it, and I like to quote you on it, but you are what they Google. And if you think about that for a second, what people Google, my son the other day, because I asked him, I was like, oh, Zach, I need to do this. How do I do it? He looks at me and he says, my son's 18. He goes, Dad, 3 words, Google, then YouTube. Everything in life is Google, then YouTube. Google, then YouTube. You figure that out, you can do anything.
Sure.
So I was like, okay. He's right. First I Google it, then I find the perfect YouTube video. I watch the video, I figure out what to do. So if you are what they Google, what they're going to find is a video or some type of visual. And that is how you're represented. That's your image. And it better be what you want it to represent. And
That's phenomenal. I didn't even...
100%.
So go ahead, Matt.
We were talking about this the other day. I mean, we end up doing all sorts of different video projects for companies. And one of them that's super simple is explaining people's products.
Right.
Right. You can't assume, like, because you make we just did one for a coolant company, Engine Ice,
yeah.
right? Does anybody know that there's a product out there that's superior to stock engine coolant?
Right.
You do if you're an
lot of
automotive guy.
Yeah.
But an average guy goes, what? Doesn't even know it exists.
Yeah. Walk in and say, I need some coolant.
So start with that, telling people about your product. Then the other no-brainer is the how-tos, right?
Yep.
And so on. So and as it relates to racers, it's like, look, every video that you create doesn't need to be a Gymkhana level film. Just start with simple content, and build from there. But remember exactly what Alex said is you are what they Google.
That's insane. I never even thought about it that way, but that's so rudimentary to think that we're based on that level. But if you take it back when Google didn't exist, you are what your first impression is.
Sure.
And now your first impression is not necessarily a handshake, it's a search.
Sure. No, and it's super important, How you end up looking online is going to really determine whether people sponsor you and how much money they spend on you.
Hey, so we had a couple comments come in. Jeff Angel says, what's up? What's up, Jeff? How are you? Jeremy Gray, what's up, dude? Carla, hi, how are you? Adam Fitza said, Warfighter made for the win. Yeah.
Yeah, Fitza.
So, hi, Adam. We're glad you're watching. Erica Peter also said, Warfighter made is awesome. We had Jacob Peter on the podcast at Four Wheel Parts in Temecula. That was a pretty fun little show, man.
Yeah. Great kid.
Yeah, awesome kid. And, you'll probably remember this one, Alex. Adam Fitza chimed in and said the Land Rush start at the OG Chula Vista might have been equal to the Crandon start.
I would push it even further because I absolutely love Crandon, but the Crandon start was unknown. Like, people had done it for years.
Yeah.
So you kind of had a way where, you show up and people are telling you what to do, and they kind of gave you the what for. The Land Rush start at especially at the very first race in Chula Vista, it was bonkers. It was completely bonkers.
Can you describe it? Because I was never there.
So they land rushed into a corner.
How far? Like, how fast could you get going? Maybe.
I mean, it was 80 miles an hour.
Holy shit! Really?
Yeah. And then hairpin corner. Then they actually jumped down into this like.
We called it the ski jump.
Yeah.
Ski jump.
Yeah. But no, on the OG one, that
like
was
a fall-away jump.
Yeah. So no, I'm talking about the original one.
The first track.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
So they built the first track, and it was in these where they were going to build some track homes. So they had these crazy elevation changes, and it started on flat, and it just dropped down. And the reason I know this is I was filming it, and I was looking around for a really good place to film, and I didn't quite understand how they were going to start them. And so I went and I set up below the drop-off, right? And I thought, okay, cool, these guys are going to be jumping. This is a great shot. Well, what I didn't realize is that they were going to be coming 4 or 5 wide. So I'm literally standing there, and the first row of cars comes over, and it's pretty much over the top of me.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, so needless to say, I've crapped myself. Right?
Oh, man.
So I blew the shot, right? And I moved out and still got a shot where I could live and still get an amazing shot.
Yeah, and by that time, like when they're calling us 80 miles an hour, you can't get out of the way. You just duck.
No, it was incredible. And, like, there was no, like, media credentials. I was like, hey, I'm here to film for so-and-so. And they're like, all right, don't die.
Alex, could you imagine seeing that, like, from an outsider's point of view, going like, oh, that dude's dead.
Yeah.
He's gonna get
I remember sitting at the second track, the one at the quarry, and it was a similar setup where there was a massive jump.
Yeah.
Thinking, we put skyboxes underneath that jump so that the trucks jump over, and you have glass front skyboxes, so you can have literally a front seat view of this jump.
Right.
That's what I remember thinking. And we never quite got that far because it closed down, but
That'd
that
have
was
been
coming next.
that'd have been like $100,000 skybox, right? It'd have been worth it though, right?
Can you imagine?
Like think of the guy who walks up with his little champagne flute and he's like,
Whoa. Dude, that would have been so cool. And David Peace commented and said, AM need the backstory, the heart to make people care about the content. Yeah, and he's right. Like, the content is always going to be king, but it's always the realism of the content, I guess you could say, right?
well, yeah, and David's one of the OGs. He's been involved with actually back to the core days, a track official, so he knows. But my brother and I talk about this all the time. It's like we have to unlock the value of this culture, and storytelling is a key to it. And just like the NFL, like it's easy to look at the NFL today and go, "Wow, this is amazing! It's this big thing." But the reality is, it's been built over the last 100 years. So how many NFL films has everybody seen that have told the stories of the quarterback and the linebacker and everybody, the coaches, right? So they built out their character set. We need to do the same, and it's not just going to be us per se. It's all these other guys who are making films and storytelling. Don't just show what we call the action porn. Like, that's great. But it gets to a point where it's like, okay, cool, another jump.
What's the baseline behind it? Yeah.
Right.
What ESPN did a good job with. I forgot what the name of the series was with the Michael Jordan one that had come out last year.
Oh, that one was amazing.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. And the backstory, everybody likes watching the game. We saw the highlights. We saw everything when we were watching it as they were playing it. But seeing the backstory was, and this wasn't just me, it wasn't just you, it wasn't just Alex. Every single person had the emotional connection to that individual series because it was so gravitating.
Yeah. No, I mean, the guy who directed that did an amazing job, and I watched it like 3 times.
Yeah, same.
Because it was so well done, and it was, as a filmmaker, it was very different than how I would approached it. And when I see things like that, I'm always impressed. I'm like, wow, I would have never thought of doing it
at all. And one of the other ones too,
about it logically is that the human psychology is there's 3 things that all humans love, no matter where you are, who you are. We all like to see things we've never seen before, hear things we've never heard before, and do things we've never done before. That's why we like to see new sights, new art, go on vacations. We like to just experience new things. And so if you can translate those into a medium that you can share with others, if it's compelling enough, others might actually send it to their friends. So you got to find the trigger that makes them share. And the trigger is either that interesting soundbite or song that they've never heard before, or joke, or political comment, or it's that interesting video that they've never seen before, or it's the experience that they've never done before. Matt took me on an experience wine tasting in Guatemala. Guadalupe Valley in Mexico. Holy shit, was that fun. Talk about
really? That was cool?
Yeah.
Damn fun.
Yeah, it's just...
I told the person I know knows about that. I've shared it. That was a trigger. So in racing, it's not just about who's winning, who's first, second, and third, but if you can share those behind-the-scenes stories, those are the triggers that get other people more involved and passionate. Like, oh my God, I was just like that when I was his age. So... racing, it's all about the stories.
We just actually talked about this at lunch, is how much more people are attached to a person instead of a brand. And that qualifies a lot, I think, with racing. This dude named Alex Schreiler told me one time, he said...
Stadium. Nobody wants to be like the Anaheim Stadium. They want to be like Jeremy McGrath.
Yeah, exactly.
I love to say, I want to be like Anaheim Stadium. No, I want to be like Jeremy. Or I want to be like Webb.
How did the organizations like Core and stuff do that? Did they paint the picture on the drivers, or did they paint the picture on the series?
They did a little bit of both. I mean, one thing was very smart, and I don't know where the nucleus of this started with Core, but like they started creating a character set, and one of the characters that they had a huge investment into was obviously their sons, the Baldwins. They were racers, you know, and they were great characters. But then very quickly, Carl Renezenter really applied himself and just kind of became a breakout star.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they put a lot of effort behind Carl. You know, but then as things develop naturally, it's like you start having you know, we went through this in motocross where it was like, it started as an undecided thing, and then it became okay, this is how we're playing it. It's like, you go back and you look at footage of Brian Deegan, and there was a point where he was not the tattooed bad boy.
Right.
There was a point where he was like a clone of you know, McGrath, or a clone of one of the other guys.
Following the trend.
Because he was trying to fit in with Supercross, right? He was trying to fit into a mold. But once he broke out and became, you know, essentially the bad guy, the heel, and he was the anti-Travis Pastrana. Pastrana was the clean guy. Then everybody had somebody to root for, because not everybody's going to identify with Travis.
Yep.
You know, I didn't. You know, I looked at Travis and went, hey, you're a really nice kid. You're really cool. You're really talented. But I don't identify with you.
Yeah,
you know,
that's 100% true, man. It's crazy to think that we had a couple people comment in saying anyone shooting content has to be willing to do double the work in editing. That's true, as David said.
Yeah.
I guess in social media, though, your editing skills can be less if you want to just post a story of what's going on,
well,
right?
But even in social media, like, you know, treat it like it's filmmaking.
Right.
You know, go in with an idea, with a plan. Like, what are you trying to do? You know, what story are you trying to tell? What is the story of this athlete? You know, and who is he? What is the brand? Right?
Exactly.
And ask those questions before you just start doing what we call spraying the bowl, right?
John Huppert says Green Bay games on the frozen tundra. And Adam Fitza also said, this is a kudos to you, Matt, said content-wise, the Mint 400 and the UTV World Championship does it. Racing these two events is justification that the sponsors need. And that goes like full circle, right? Is like, even if your content game sucks, other people are going to be able to do it for you. If you're just a pure racer and you go out there and you race it, you're going to get something from it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we know what we're trying to do, and we're happy and willing to put in the work.
Yep.
And, you know, my brother and I decided a long time ago that, you know, we had to do this all the way. You know, and for us, that means, you know, knowing the people, knowing the characters. We write the scripts. Him and I will fight for days about, you know, different edits and scripts, and, you know, whether storylines and, you know, he'll change things that I've put in there, and vice versa, right? And so, like, we actually give a shit, and that's really where I feel like a lot of our content excels, is like, you can tell that this person didn't just slap it together, that you know, they actually care about it, and they want the best to come out. And, you know, look, our goal is simple. We want to grow the culture and the sport of off-road racing, right? And that's for everybody. That's not just, you know, hey, just pay us. That's the builders, that's the manufacturers, that's the aftermarket companies, that's the racers, right?
Yep.
And we have a huge opportunity here in front of us. I mean, at no point in off-road racing history have we had such a big opportunity as we have today with the growth and advent of UTVs.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so now we can sell a product that we race, and, you know, people can go to a dealership and go, I'll take one.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
It,
and it doesn't have to just be, I mean, everybody loves trophy trucks, but it doesn't have to be a trophy truck now. It's actually a good entry point.
I mean, look, I've been, you know, in off-road cars since I was 12 years old, and all sorts of different ones, ridden with all sorts of different trophy truck racers, and been privy to having all sorts of incredible experiences. And I'm still blown away by UTVs and the amount of fun per dollar that you can have them.
Yeah, I think on the adverse of what you're saying is, like, Alex and I probably wouldn't be as close, or I wouldn't have been a racer. Alex has a racer himself, and I wouldn't be a racer if UTVs didn't exist.
Right.
A little backstory on how I got into off-road was, I think it was 2014-ish or something. I got the opportunity to go to Casey Curry's and test a Pro Light. And I was just working with him on some computer stuff and web stuff. And then I got in there and I was like, dude, this is it. Like, this is motocross with four wheels. Like, this is fucking badass. Like, this is the coolest thing since sliced bread. And then he goes, yeah, but it costs this much. And I go, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like, see ya. And then I talk with the guys from the UTV Wolfpack, and they're like, this is a little bit more affordable with the UTV. Like, you can get into it. I was like, well, you know what, I think I can probably get on with this. Like, I can probably find some sponsors and actually do it. So it was like, wow, now I have an entry point.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, look, at the end of the day, why off-road racing is here is that, you know, a bunch of guys got together and decided to drive vehicles down the peninsula, and then they did it at the Mint that same year. And that created desert off-road racing. And they did it with all the wrong vehicles, of course, because nothing existed at that time. Now we have the vehicles, specifically UTVs, that you can go to a dealership and, like, stock. They're 80 mile an hour across whoops machines. I mean, that's incredible, you know?
Yeah.
So for us, it's really exciting. We want to, you know, share it with everybody and you know, like Cameron Steele says, like, let's share the stoke, you know, because we know once you come in, you'll be a lifer.
Dude, 100%. So David Peace commented in also saying, Alex, you'll probably like this. Plus, we had more TV talent with NBC. We had reports from staging, hot pits, and the podium. Cubic Dollar created the core brand.
Yep. And to be fair, he's right, but that attracted a lot of talented people. So you had a lot of talented people, a lot of passionate people, and then you had the Baldwins financing it. And
right.
it was really cool. It was really spectacular. And, you know, as we operate forward, you know, we look to glean things that we learned back then and apply them to what we're doing now.
Yeah, John actually commented in too, said you can't find a new Turbo S now. There's so much demand.
Yeah.
And those are cool cars as well. Alex, so one thing that Matt keeps being humble and kind of passing over this, but the Baldwins did a fantastic job back in the day, right, with core and everything like that. There's more UTV events now. There's more off-road racing events now. There's different series that are sprinkled all over the country, all over the world for that matter. But Matt is on the forefront of all of this stuff that he's doing as well with the UTV World Championship, the Mint, and just off-road in general. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, not only is he at the forefront, but he's still going. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Core kind of doesn't exist anymore. Core went out of business in 2008. Lucas Off-Road Racing Series went out of business last year. They didn't continue. They didn't survive. The Mint 400 UTV World Championship, they're still going strong. I think when you have enthusiasts that run the series instead of companies or television producers, you get a different series. So because Matt rides, because they own UTVs, because he understands, he used to skateboard. Look at this. Matt will appreciate this right here.
Yeah, there we go.
There's my skate. We go way back, Matt and I, back to the Osiris days.
That's right.
Action
That's
Sports
right.
days. He gets. He's not doing it for a business. He's not doing it because they need producers. He's doing it because it's his life. And I think that makes
and passion.
That's when it changed for the public. Is when it was when social media and when our cell phones became. Cell phones let every person with a phone become a video recorder, creator, producer, and then distributor. So with our cell phones, everybody started sharing content. Race teams started sharing content, and we started seeing what race teams care about. And we were able to learn from that. Oh, wow. Now that racers are sharing content, we can learn what they like. Now as producers, we can steer in that direction and give them more. You know, a lot of the failed series didn't have enthusiasts running the series. And I think that's what the problem was. They were doing it for the money, not because they were doing it because they loved it.
Man, that's one of the differences. That's a huge point to bring up, and we're gonna go to commercial break in just a second here, Alex. But I'd like to talk about this a little bit more with, with Matt. Is the skill set behind some of these, we'll call them enthusiasts or off-road enthusiasts, nowadays with the capabilities that you have, like producing and directing and the equipment you have. A lot of that stuff was different back in the day. It was somebody filming that was part of a film crew, not an off-road enthusiast. And now the tool sets are different for the people, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the paradigm shift that we were able to really be in the forefront of is the digital technology, right? So, but the other part of it is, the team you put together. And that's one thing I could say I'm really proud of, especially with the Mint 400 and UTV World Championship, is it's enthusiasts. Like it drives people crazy because we go through, hiring process of even adding freelancers, and I'm like, so do you off-road? And they're like, well, why?
Yeah, what is that?
I'm a camera operator.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I need a guy who understands why he should be filming. Yeah. And, and it's pervasive. Actually, it's funny that the guy who was was responsible for producing the amazing television coverage of Core, Jason Markham, he's part of our team.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's another guy that works with us, Lonnie Peralta, who, his dad, he grew up in off-road. His dad is one of the OG off-road promoters, right? So it's like I've been really fortunate to find these people and pull them in and go, okay, I know you know what I'm talking about,
right.
and
it's almost easier to teach somebody how to, for layman's terms, use a camera if they're an enthusiast than the adverse if they know how to use a camera but they're not an enthusiast.
Yeah, and you see this in television all the time where like, it's just lazy camera work, or you can just tell by the production that they just phoned it in and they're just slapping it together. And, again,
the football guy missed the pass.
Yeah. I mean, like you shouldn't call us to do lots of other things, but off-road, that's what we live and breathe.
Dude, that's so cool. Well, I think that's a good ending. You got anything else for Matt, Alex?
Why don't the both of you find a date and we'll go try one of your favorite sandwiches again over there at the Yellow Deli.
Dude, have you been at the Yellow Deli?
Oh, yeah.
So I was pissed off, though, because the Yellow Deli is closed on Saturdays.
They have some odd hours.
But, so the Yellow Deli, anybody that lives in the San Diego, North County area, or even in Temecula, you got to go out there and check out the Yellow Deli. All right, Alex. Well, hey, thanks, bud.
Thanks, brother.
Take care, guys.
We'll see you.
Take care, man.
Man, it's so cool to see. I say this every time I talk to Alex. Like, I feel like I'm getting information for just talking to him. Like,
oh, absolutely.
It's super cool.
He has a very unique knowledge base. There's not a lot of people that have, worked in the different areas that he's worked in or been in the rooms putting together very large sponsorship deals for motorsports. As he has. So.
But that baseline is only the only part of it. Like his creativity and his ability to see the future is like what I really admire from him. So,
absolutely.
And you're on that same page. So thank you very much, Alex, for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's 6 o'clock right now. We're going to go to commercial break, and we will be right back with Jim Beaver and Matt Martelli.
Shock Therapy, the premier UTV suspension tuning company. We test daily with the leading manufacturers in the industry to perfect our shock tunes and race-proven components for all UTVs. Whether it's high-speed racing or slower trails, we have a suspension tune that is perfect for your driving style. Visit shocktherapist.com to improve your ride today.
You ready to test these tires out? I was born ready. Let it rip.
Zollinger Racing builds the best aftermarket products available.
products for your UTV or snowmobile, including billet radius rods, billet tie rods, billet steering knuckles, billet steering racks, alternator kits, and much more. All manufactured in the United States in-house at their headquarters in Nibley, Utah. Travis Zollinger and his team test in some of the most brutal conditions, racing in places like visit ZollingerRacingProducts.com and use the code DIRTLIFE to get 10% off your next purchase and join us on Zollinger Racing, the best products, period. Yeah, finally, we got Lance from Solderweld in the studio. Thanks for coming down, bud. Hey, why don't we just record a commercial now?
Yeah, why not? So good to be here, man. It's been a lot. I've been trying to get down here forever, and I wanted to talk about the off-road kit.
Dude, I love those things. I got it in my pack.
Yeah, we're running hundreds of vehicles now running them, whether it's a UTV or some guy's got it in a backpack on his motocross. He's got everything he needs to make a fix right there on the fly, out on the trail, or in the desert, whatever it is.
Well, since I've already used one, I kind of know what to use it for, but explain what it does.
All right, so let's pull one out real quick. You've got your aluminum rods. Remember, they're rods, right? So let's say a radiator. You get a random rock chip runs through as you're racing. You get a rock chip in a radiator. You got to fix it right there or you're out of the race.
You can patch it up instead of
your hot block, heat absorption putty, so it keeps you from getting burned, number one, as well as keeps the heat from traveling. So it's really nice.
I've used this not even to fix anything, so that stuff works so good, man.
Listen, it's easy. It straps in nicely so that you have everything you need in one little place, and you don't have to carry a big bag in
it's
the
like a first
truck.
aid kit for your vehicle.
Yeah, chase trucks have it as well, so that if they need to make a fix on the fly, they can get it done and get it done quick and get you back in the race.
Dude, those things are so cool. All right, so it's at Solderweld on Instagram, Facebook, and solderweld.com.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, bud.
Appreciate it.
All right, we are back. Thank you guys very much for joining us. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us on this Memorial Day weekend. It's really cool to see that we have so many people that are hanging out and talking with us. We are going to get into it a little bit right now with our buddy Jim Beaver. What's up, bud? How are you?
What's happening, guys? What's the word on this Memorial Day weekend?
Hey, first I want to ask, could you tilt your phone sideways so that we could see a little bit more of where you're at?
It's not spectacular right now. I'm actually in Prescott on the porch. My parents have a house up here in the mountains, so I come up here on the weekends just to get out of the hot weather at Parker and have some fun. Went to the skate park this morning, and Matt's been up here. I love it. So
Yeah, it's beautiful up there. So did you pull any 50-50s or anything radical?
Dude, I switch between, I still ride my BMX bike a ton, and then I skateboard too. And Bucky Lassick just dropped a new Powell Peralta board, and it's a little bit wider, so I bought one of those and support a homie because Bucky's a good dude. And
yes, he is.
So it's a brand new build, and I just finally took it out today. And it's one of those where I'm not even half as good as I used to be, but I still enjoy going to the skate park. And truthfully, I pushed for 2 hours around the skate park.
Nice.
You do that, it's a hell of a good exercise, and I just do it for that. And, not only that, but I can't risk falling and hurt myself, like doing something stupid, because it ends up between, my business and my race program and stuff. I just can't risk it, but I still love going to the skate park. I'm there at least twice a week, I think, with my daughter and her and I. She loves skating and riding and everything else. So it's a good time and it's good exercise,
Do you ever get to get on a board or anything like that anymore? No?
I stopped, and I'll tell you why. I was always a small dude through all the way through high school, and then after high school, I went from 5'9", 140.
Put the mic a little closer.
Oh, sorry. I went from 5'9", 140 to 6 foot.
Oh, you just shot up.
Yeah. So then and I skated vert. So, falling off of the top of a ramp when you're 200 pounds, it hurts a lot, and your body starts doing weird stuff. Like my last major injury was just from normal. I didn't slam radically, but it shifts your hips, and I displaced my coccyx, and it was the most painful thing. I
always tell everybody that because they're like, dude, you've been hurt so many times, and I'm like, still to this day, the most painful thing is when I dislocated my hip.
Yeah. So, I I was like, okay, I'm not 16 anymore. I'm going to chill out on the skateboarding and focus on caged vehicles, right?
Hey, well, Jim's over here just still beating it on the.
He's got me, dude. And like the last time I skateboarded with a friend was about a year ago, and the whole time, all I could do is I'm skating, I'm pushing, I'm just cruising around this really bitchin' skate park we have down in Oceanside, and all I could think of the whole time was don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall.
Hey, so
what am I? What's that?
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, I don't know if you guys have seen, but we'll give a shout out to a UTV homie. But Johnny Angel, I've got one of his longboards, and he just did another run of them. But he made these billet longboards that are the most insane thing. You get them on UTV's website, but I got one of his first run he did a couple of years ago. And if you guys haven't seen, like Johnny goes over the top with everything, but he makes these billet longboards that are just they should be hung on a wall. It's just this rad hunk of billet metal, but you guys got to check them out because they're insane. Just the craftsmanship of them.
Dude, that would be actually pretty cool to see. Hey, talking about commemorative stuff, I don't know if you can see it, but here in between Matt and I, he brought one of the, we'd call this a trophy, right? Is this
decanter, Mint 400 decanter.
Mint 400 decanter. I don't know if you can see this good, Jim, but these things are insane.
I feel like you guys keep upping the game every year, Matt, because, I mean, I've got a hell of a collection of these decanters at this point, but that thing looks amazing.
Dude, it is so cool. And well, first of all, thank you very much for bringing this in, Matt. This is just insane. And Jim, when I was opening it up, the box that it comes in, I felt like I was opening a new iPad or something. This thing is like super good. The packaging is fantastic.
Every I mean, that's a part of the history of the Mint. You know, they back in the day, the originators gave those away to all the racers. So it took us a few years to figure out where to source it.
Yeah.
And I went on kind of a snipe hunt, you know, going to Ohio and finding the old factory and people that worked in the old factory that made these. And unfortunately, we had to go to China to get them made instead of being made in America. But we got it done, and now every year we change the decanter and we put the previous year's champion on the front of it. So this year's we just actually launched it. We got the samples for the 2021 decanter. It'll have Luke McMillan on it. And,
nice.
Yeah, that one came out really nice, and we only have a limited amount of those. So if you're not racing and you're not getting one, there's only a couple hundred for sale. So get them quick; they're going to be gone.
It's just so cool to see that commemorative stuff. Hey, Jim, since we're talking a little bit about history and things like that, do you remember the first time that you were introduced to Matt?
To Matt? Ooh, I have known of Matt for a long time, but I got to say it's probably going to go back 10 years, like right around the time I launched my radio show. Literally like a month later, they were doing something. You guys used to do those videos where you brought like a theater out to the events, Matt.
Oh, yeah, Dirt Theater, yeah.
Dirt Theater, yeah. And so I think we're going back a decade at this point. And I think you were trying to do one at Parker, and we started talking about doing something together. And I can't remember if you ever ended up doing it at Parker, but it was right when I was kind of launching my thing and still pretty green, and just really fortunate at that point. Matt kind of took me under his wing a little bit and kind of helped me out and showed me some of the ropes and kind of grew me into where I'm at today, which, you know, I owe a lot to Matt and Josh just because they had no reason to take a flyer on me, but for some odd reason they did, you know?
Well, I mean, look, we saw your hustle and your tenacity, and obviously for the people that don't know, like, you know, you are a second generation off-road racer. Your dad's one of the OGs, you know, and Parker is, you know, one of the towns that spawned off-road desert racing. So
yeah, now he's the man behind the dirt. Excuse me. Sorry, the Down and Dirty show.
Yeah,
sorry, Jim.
Among other things, I mean, Jim's got so many different things going on. It's awesome, and I love it. No, it's funny about that Parker one is, yeah, we did do Dirt Theater there, and what was funny about it is I remember going back and forth with where we were going to do it, and I wanted to do it at the bar, and they wouldn't let us put up a screen there, so we had to do it like around the corner or something, and nobody showed up because, of course, there was no alcohol there. It was all down at the bar, right? So we tried our best to shuttle beers back and forth to get people to go over and watch it, but it didn't work. So valuable lesson learned, always go where the alcohol's at. Don't fight that. You're going to lose.
Yeah. So anybody that I didn't give Jim a proper introduction, but anybody that doesn't know who Jim is, Jim's an avid professional off-road racer, and as well as the host of the Down and Dirty radio show. He's got a couple other media properties that he does. So actually, I think I did a podcast with Jim back in the day as well. Jim's been on the forefront of it a long, long time.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to look back. I mean, we'll have to get you on again and catch up because I think you were on a couple times, and and we haven't caught up in a few years. So it's just one of those. It's funny because I've got so many friends in the industry, and it's like, it's like you think you start looking back, and it's like, you ask me, and I'm like, oh, George would have been on the show a couple years ago. But you look back, it's probably been 5 years, and it's like, damn, how does time get away from us that quick? It's kind of gnarly.
Well, actually, Matt and I were actually talking about this because all of us are working today. And Jim got to have a little bit of fun, but I guarantee he was doing some work at some point. But it is crazy because you kind of forget like what you had for lunch, you forget what you did yesterday, and you just kind of keep moving forward and always pushing the needle as hard as you can. That's why I think all of us have such a good commonality and a good understanding of what each other do. When you met Matt for the first time, do you remember what the conversation was or what the instance was? Were you at a race or where were you?
I think it was probably at Parker. I reached out to him because dude, we're talking the infancy of my radio show. We're talking like a month and a half in, and it was pretty rough at that point. But I was just talking about, I think, doing something like collabing with him at, doing something like a live remote at the Dirt Theater. And I can't remember, just the logistics of it didn't work out. Like Matt said, it ended up kind of being a bit of a mess there in Parker with Dirt Theater and things like that. But it kind of opened the door to future projects. And Matt ended up designing my first real logo. And sorry, there was a horsefly buzzing around me.
Dude, that thing looks like a pterodactyl.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this thing's pretty gnarly.
You might need a gun to defend yourself there.
Yeah, but Matt and them, they did my first website. They did my first marketing deck. They did my first logo. I mean, they really helped. Like Matt's like, hey, this thing may have some legs, but dude, you got to get a professional look going on here because this isn't good. And he was dead right on everything he said, And I think that's one thing I love about Matt and Josh. Like, they won't always tell you what you want to hear, but they'll tell you the truth. And I think that goes a long ways in this industry,
100%. And one of the things that I'd like to tell the audience, if they don't already know, but Jim actually collaborates with you guys on some stuff. He's actually been the voice of the UTV World Championship a few times here. And so you guys have a good working relationship after that first introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I have a lot of respect for Jimmy and all the things that he's accomplished. And, one of the things I always point out to people, he created a personality and a show that crosses over outside of just off-road.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's critical because he'll go to IndyCar events and he'll go to NASCAR events and he connects with people and he brings them back in off-road. And I really think that that's critical in growing, and making sure that we just don't sit in our same circle and not expand, because I believe we have a lot of unlocked value. So that's one of the things I appreciate and respect about Jimmy.
I think that's a good thing to bring up too is Jim has a long reach, right? So he can bring a lot more people in. But even us, like myself, our audience members, I know that there's a lot of people that go out on side-by-side rides and, they'll say, wow, this is like the first time I'm going to take my uncle, the first time I'm going to take my cousin or whoever it is, and they get to go experience it. There's never been one person out of those thousands of people that have experienced it for the first time that hasn't want to go back again.
No, I totally agree with you. And, I think it's important. That's why, when we started talking, you almost seemed surprised that I was like, yeah, I want to do the show. That seems cool, right?
Right.
Because I see what everybody's doing. I don't always have time to reach out to them and give them props, but I try to.
Yeah.
And really, I still believe off-road culture, off-road racing is in its infancy, and we have a long ways to go. And that means more, more personalities, more content, more shows, podcasts, TV shows, radio shows, all that. It's like when you turn on, like, it's really funny. I'm a huge MMA fan, and I'm really glad that they're getting the support on ESPN. But it's hilarious because I buy ESPN Plus only for MMA. So I get on there and I look for the little fist and I click on that and I'm like, what is all this
Other
baseball
crap.
stuff and get all this college. Who cares? Like, where is the MMA at, right? And so I think that expansion and that constant push and support with each other, I think it's important. I think it's that old adage of, the rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah, I agree. And Jim can probably attest to some of this stuff, is that he does it a lot more than a little guy like me, but Extreme E needs more coverage.
Yes.
Some of the esports that Jim's also involved in need more coverage. There's a lot of room for him to be able to support those industries.
Well, it's funny because a couple of years ago, that's why now it's all going on 2 years. We started offroadracer.com to put all that stuff together because, we should be talking about WRC. We should be talking about Extreme E. We should be talking about, King of the Hammers racing in Europe, right? We should be talking about all those things are off-road, and there are some benefits and connections and similarities. And if we're grouped together, then we're powerful. But if we're this, if it's short course, desert, and everything's broken down in these little tiny markets, we really don't have any power. We learned this lesson from action sports.
Some stuff just gets slides by.
Yeah, we just look when ESPN came into action sports and started grouping things together. They did it ostensibly because they were trying to figure out how to make the Olympics out of it, right? And if you go back to the first X Games and you look at all the silly stuff that was in it, it wasn't perfect in the beginning, right? It took them a while to kind of coalesce it down and get the formula that they still have today, right? Well, we already have that with off-road racing. And by the way, we're billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue globally. I mean, we're talking everything from Jeep to BF Goodrich to oil to gas to, the Bronco that just came out. All that is born from off-road racing.
Yep.
So it's a matter of us kind of getting our hands around everything and going, this is us. It's not just this one discipline in Southern California. It's this effect that has all over the globe, right? So that's why it's important, for us to work together with guys like Jim, with guys like you, even Alex and some of the other people, because there's a lot yet to be done and a lot of value yet to be unlocked.
Well, first things first is I've never thought of it that way, so thank you for giving me the overall understanding of it. But Jim has a lot better understanding of that, and maybe you can kind of elaborate on what he's saying a little bit here.
Well, I think, Matt's dead on, and what they're trying to do, and I kind of feel the same way. I mean, I've had numerous people come up, hey, would it offend you if I started an off-road podcast? I'm like, no. I'm like, tell your friend to start one too. Like the more content, the more stuff, the more people we have out there talking about it, the more George Hamels of the world, the more Jim Beavers, the more Matt Martellis, the better off this industry is going to be. We need to, there's so many stories to tell. There's so many personalities. There's so many people, brands. Like, we all need to be doing our part. And it's, the more we have, it's healthy. I mean, you look at NASCAR, how many NASCAR shows are there?
Yeah.
There's a million of them, and most of them all work together, And I feel like off-road's the same way. And I think, for a long time, there was a lot of people like, they felt like, oh, they're this person, it's me or them, we can't have multiples. I'm like, man, bring it on. I want 30, I want 40 shows. It's great for people to have, those outlets and things. And it's like the interest is there, and what I've tried to do is like 2 weeks ago, I think I had Maddie Wedking on my show, but I coupled her with Ed Carpenter, who, was, fighting for the front row of the Indy 500, and the guy's a 3-time pole sitter. So to me, I'm like, all right, so Ed's going to bring in all these, these eyes and ears from IndyCar, and Maddie's this young up-and-coming off-road star. So how do we get her in front of these IndyCar people that have no idea who Maddie is? I couple her with one of the guys that's the story going into the Indy 500. Do I know if it did anything for Maddie? Well, I'm sure she got 2 or 3 followers over it. And those are 2 or 3 new people, that didn't know who Maddie was before. And that makes for a healthier industry. But at the same time, these people that are IndyCar fans, now they're hearing stories about Baja, Nevada. They're hearing stories about off-road. And I can tell you, like, I've been on the grid at the Indy 500. I've been, at NHRA in the water box. All these athletes, all these stars of all these sports that I look up to and I see on TV that I think are complete, just absolute badasses. They look at off-road and all they want to do is get behind the wheel of a UTV. I go to the Indy we're not talking about Indy cars. We're talking about Polaris Razors, and they want to know what long travel kit that they can put on their, their new XP Turbo. And, that's all they want to talk about. Hey, can I go to that thing, out in Glamis with you guys? Or I want to go down to Baja for the 1000. I just want a pre-run. I don't even care about racing. I just want to go have tacos, drink beer, and pre-run.
Dude, that crossover is so cool.
He's 100% right. I'll tell you a funny story. We went out to film 24 Hours of Daytona, and we're all jazzed. We're like, it's 24 Hours of Daytona, right? And so we got the opportunity to interview a bunch of the drivers, right? And a lot of them were asking me about off-road, but there was one moment that was really funny. Brian Johnson from AC/DC is a big racer, right? And so he was racing in a Daytona prototype car that year. So it was a big deal to him. And so I went to his handler, and, he kept going back and forth with him, like, we only need 5 minutes. We only need 5 minutes. And so we got him, right? And as we're walking in, I'm talking with him, and he's like, oh, what do you do? What's this about? And I'm like, well, we're really from the off-road world. And he goes, oh, do you know about Baja? And I said, yeah, actually, Baja's my backyard. Like, I literally spend, days and days down there pre-running and just having fun. And he's like, okay, that's what we want to talk about. He didn't want to talk about anything to do with the race he was about to do. He's like, tell me about Baja.
Nice.
So to my crew's annoyance, we sat there for about a half an hour and talked about off-road racing, which was not what we were there to shoot.
That's a little bit longer than your 5 minutes.
Right, and his handler was freaking out, and then we got the interview that we needed, and it was great. But, it speaks to the power of our culture, right? We're not just selling the contest of racing. We're selling adventure, right? And even further, the culture of off-road is a lifestyle. It's not something that you stop doing Monday, after the race. You live it and breathe it. And, usually if you're into it, on the weekends that there's not races, you're going off-roading with your friends.
Yep.
So, again, it's the thing I always try and explain to people is like, and I'll pick on short course racing. Short course racing is a show.
Yep.
Right? Desert racing, off-road racing, it's a culture.
Yeah.
Right? So, once people understand it, they start beginning to understand, like, it's going to affect your entire life, your house, where you live, how you dress, food you eat. Now you're in deep. You're going to get an F-250 or an F-350, and you're going to get a trailer, and now you have to have a house that can accommodate that, and then there's usually an RV or a toy haul. It just keeps going, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's motocross bike or if it's motorbikes or UTVs or at the top level of trophy trucks. It's the same. You're doing the same thing.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. Jim lives that life as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the truth. You look at, compared to IndyCar and NASCAR, these guys, they race on one weekend, and the next weekend they're off or whatever, and they're not thinking about IndyCar. They're not thinking about NASCAR. They're, they may take a vacation to the lake, or they may go to Vegas or something like that. Like, when I'm not racing, I got my RV and my Razor, and I'm out in the desert, camping, and off-road is a lifestyle, and it's hard. Your show Dirt Life, obviously that, it makes sense to me, because people that are into off-road, they live it. You're not, I can't tell you many guys that drive a trophy truck and then never go out in the dirt, except for 5 times a year. There's not many that do. Even at that level, they're all loving it. They're living the life. They may have nicer toys than us three, but they're still living that life, just about every single weekend of the year. And it's kind of crazy. This is one of the few motorsports that actually does that, where it's such a lifestyle. And motocross is definitely another one, but it's an anomaly in the world of motorsports. But, as Matt said, it lends itself to these manufacturers, things like that, because it's not a 5 weekend a year thing. This is a 50 weekend a year thing for people like us.
I couldn't agree more. And I can bring 2 examples, actually. The first example is just a UTV example. Max Verstappen and Alex Albon both did some sort of Red Bull thing in a Honda Talon. Yeah. And neither of them had driven it. They had no idea, but they were out there sending it. I mean, they almost crashed it. They're the best drivers on the planet, right? And they were like, enamored by it. They were so pumped after they got out of that thing.
Our mutual friend of ours, Armin Schwartz, I remember talking to him about UTVs, and he's raced everything. He raced WRC professionally, and then he won San Felipe in a Class 1 car. He beat all the trophy trucks.
Dang.
So he is the man. And I remember talking to him about UTVs, and he's like, more or less like, Matt, don't be silly. I'm never going to get in a UTV. And then he calls me one day, and he's just like a little kid. He's like, so I have something to talk to you about. I was in this Polaris Razor, and it is incredible, right? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I told you. And then like a year later, he's doing rides in Germany. And,
there you go.
Like he's putting on rides in Germany, and he's talking to me. He's like, we need to do a UTV World Championship here. And I think, the thing that we forget about as Americans is how free we are.
Yeah.
And off-roading, that is a big part of what being an off-roader is getting off the pavement and really getting free. So when people from other countries that have a lot more restrictions than we do, especially with vehicles, get that taste of freedom, they're all in. They're like, look, we want to bring this to our country and do it.
100%. And the second example I was going to bring up was a little bit higher level than UTVs, but with the new Extreme E series that came out, off-road is transcending again into some of the, we'll call it pavement racing, street racing stuff, because Lewis Hamilton, although he's not a racer in Extreme E, he's a vested partner in one of the Extreme E teams.
Yeah.
And so the amount that transcends, just like Jim was talking about with Matty, and who did you say the IndyCar driver was?
Ed Carpenter.
Yeah, so Ed Carpenter, like, he's trying to do that, and it's happening all over the place.
Yeah, I think the Extreme E thing is great, and you know why I love it is, and I'm gonna use a stupid analogy, right? It's like getting people to try and listen to like a new metal band, and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty great, that's really cool, and you're like, well, wait till you listen to Slayer. You know what I mean? So for me, I look at what Extreme E is doing, and I think it's really cool, and I think electric vehicles have a big future in off-road racing.
100%.
Yet to be proven, and we just started an electric vehicle class and invited all the manufacturers in for the Mint, because we see that as something positive. We want to be the proving ground for new technologies as they evolve. But we also know the truth of trophy trucks, right? And we know that once we get people to the party, they're going to go, oh, there's these electric, whoa, what's that?
Yeah.
Because it's undeniable. Like, you cannot look at, like, the start of the Mint 400 and not be blown away by it.
100%.
I brought people who've been to the biggest motorsports events in the world, to the start of our race, and they just walk over to me and they're like, this is unbelievable.
Well, Jim kind of can speak to that in a real world sense, because he's been a driver in a trophy truck and a UTV.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, and it's funny. I never would have thought 10 years ago I'd have a trophy truck parked in the garage, and obviously, there's reasons why it's parked. It's a dated truck, and that's kind of passed me by, and I can't afford a new one. But UTVs, I've had this conversation with people, and I've got this new car, new to us this year. You know what I mean? Of Mitch Guthrie's former car, and this thing acts like a miniature Class 1 car. And you look at the races, and Silver State, we did 300 miles, and first through like 10th was all separated by like 10 minutes, and first place was won by by 8 minutes. Chris won it by 8 seconds, something crazy like that. Or it's just insane, like how close the racing is. So are we going the speeds that trophy trucks do in UTVs? No, but the racing is so ridiculously close. Like, to me as a racer, I want to race. And I don't care if I'm going 100 miles an hour, 140. If it's close battling, you still get that adrenaline rush, and UTVs are delivering on that. I mean, you look at like the Pro Turbo at any given race, it's 60 deep. It's like, it's crazy. You have, you put one tire wrong and you're going to lose the race. It's nuts.
It really is. It's phenomenal. Hey, and just a quick shout out for Jim. We're sitting here at IMG Motorsports, the guys who built the previous car that you raced.
Yeah, James is my buddy. I got a brand new King of the Hammers build he did for me. I think he's built maybe 4 or 5 razors at this point for me. And, James and IMG, those guys kill it. I love James to death. That guy puts in the work. I mean, he's an OG when it comes to UTVs, and they do phenomenal work there, man.
Dude, I agree. Hey, are you going to go down to Mexico this next week, Jim?
I got a bunch of other stuff going on, so I regretfully won't be in Baja, but I definitely 500 is my favorite race of the year. And people go, why is it not the 1,000? I just love the layout of the 500, kind of the distance of it, running around Ensenada. It's just, I don't know. I love the 500 a little bit more than the 1,000, but it's just, so it's my favorite race of the year, but I regretfully I won't be down there this year.
Matt was saying that it's pretty cool this year too.
Yeah. Cafro came back from his first pre-run and gave me the breakdown of some of the new sections that they're doing. So it's going to be a great race, as usual. I mean, look, every 500 is a great race, and the race director, Jose G., works his ass off putting together new course and good course. And I was explaining earlier that those guys have their work cut out for them, because we have the luxury of calling the BLM up and going, this is the course we want. This is what we want to do. So we're dealing with one group. They have the challenge of dealing with hundreds of different ejidos and groups of ejidos, which are the landowners down there.
Because Farm A could be Farm B, whatever it is.
So it's a challenge,
yeah.
But fortunately, they've got some really passionate people working at SCORE, and namely, I could speak to Jose G, because he's a friend of mine and super passionate about off-road racing. So, he worries about putting together a good course, right? Yeah, I'm pumped. It's going to be good. I'm going down. I'm going to have some tacos for sure.
Nice. I'm excited to go down and get fat too, eating tacos. Yeah. Hey, Jim. So, first of all, we thank you very much for taking the time out to hang out with us right now. But before we let you go, what did you think about the motocross race at Powell this weekend? Did you get to see it yet?
No, I haven't got a chance to watch it yet.
Oh man, I'm not going to spoiler alert it for you then.
No.
So
I got it saved. It's on my it's on my list of things to do.
All right. So did you get to watch it, Matt?
Yeah. I did.
Okay. So Matt and I are going to talk about it. We'll don't watch the show for the next 5 minutes, okay?
All right.
Hey, thanks, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
We really appreciate it, Jim. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your Memorial Day, bud.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, you guys too. Thanks for everything you do for the sport, George.
Yeah, and you as well, bud. Thanks.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
See ya. Man, it amazes me that all of these people are coming together, and I think it really has a lot to do with the way that you were talking, Matt, that everybody just wants the industry to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's super, super cool. So thank you very much for Jim Beaver. You guys can always check out, I think it's at, what is it? Down and Dirty Show, at Down and Dirty Show.
Yeah, just search Jim Beaver. You're going to find everything.
Yeah,
Jim
exactly.
Beaver, Down and Dirty Show.
He's got tons and tons of good content. He has fantastic guests on. So if you guys want to join another good podcast, you can go check it out. So since Jim's not watching right now, did you watch the full Pala race? Did you go out there?
I watched parts of it, but the first thing I want to comment on is I'm just glad it's at Pala. It's a really dynamic track. They put some money, I think it was Fox, put some money into it, into the changes.
Yeah. And a month worth of work.
Yeah. So it looked really good. And that's one of the things that I can't speak higher of is like, you got to start with a dynamic track.
Yep.
If it's not a dynamic track, the racing is going to be boring.
And it got rough as shit. And they're going to have another one here in Pala in September, I think.
That's awesome. The end. It should be here, man. This is where it's all from,
Yep.
I get irritated when I see us losing opportunities in Southern California because of insurance or because of cost or just because people don't want to deal with it. It's difficult to put races on.
And you know that better than anybody else because you have to take some of the events that you produce outside of California.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny about this area too is it's on the reservation. So I think it would be much more difficult to do it off the res. So we have to give some props to the Pala Indian tribe out there for
hosting it,
for allowing a world-class motocross racetrack to be built, on their reservation is really cool.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I've ridden out at Pala a bunch of times, and I just like the facility. It's super cool.
Yeah.
So what did you think about the racing though? Because it didn't disappoint.
No, and that's, it's funny because, talking about off-road in general, motocross has always been part of it.
Right.
And growing up, the first place I moved here when I was a kid, 12 years old, El Cajon, and it was like moto, everything.
What they call it back then, the Cajon Zone.
It still is a cone zone.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit nicer now. And you can't ride your bike across town and get a beer. But, some things are bound to change. But, look, motocross athletes are some of the most physical, mental, demanding athletes. I mean, they're just incredible athletes. And they don't get a lot of credit. I mean, their window of their career is so short because your body just can't take it.
Right. Even the amount that you use your brain. So fun fact is one of the brain specialists that helps a lot of the motocross riders. He's in Texas. Dr. Scott Burkhart. He helps a lot of those guys focus and train their brain better because they have such visual cues and their brain works so fast and all the whatever it is, the connections that they have in their brain. I was injured at the UTV World Championship in 2019, and I got the opportunity to go and see Dr. Burkhart, and he's so passionate. Like, I called and I said, hey, I have this situation. Can I talk to Dr. Burkhart? Would he even see me?
Right.
She goes, I'll get back to you in a couple of days. An hour later, he knew my whole story, everything that happened to me, my whole life, and said that he would like to come see him. And so he gave me the ability to change some of the things that were damaged to retune it because he knew from motocross.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, look, I'm a big advocate of brain health in general. Like, even if you're not injured, right?
Yep.
It's a muscle. You need to do things to make your brain better, especially if you're a professional athlete. So it's always been one of those things that people overlook. And I remember, quick side note. Back in the core days, I was working for Steve Barlow, helping him put together his team, and we hired Ricky Johnson. And one of the things right away Ricky showed me is how he was taught to warm up by this gentleman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so one of the things was we would hit mitts. So I'd hold mitts for him, and he'd hit mitts to get his brain and body functioning at a certain level. So when he got in the truck, he didn't need warm-up laps. He was already operating at 100%.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, so he's not just sitting in the pits and then all of a sudden going out and getting in the race truck.
And you see it with Formula One drivers. They're on bikes pedaling and they're getting their heart rate up.
And playing those games and stuff like that.
Exactly. That's what that's for.
That's crazy, man. It's super cool to see that. I wonder who else does that. But the reason that I was bringing it up is because the motocross sets the bar very, very high.
Yes.
And off-road is getting to the point where these same drivers and all of these we're going to call them new drivers and racers and UTVs need to have these same capabilities or are growing these capabilities.
Sure.
So I think it's really cool to see that all of this stuff, again, transcends from one genre to the other. And it's just playing in the dirt, plain and simple.
Yeah. But before I cut you off, you were going to talk about the racing at Paula.
Yeah, so first of all, it was phenomenal. Like, I think the racing at Paula, to me, was, when I see it a little bit different because I like to look at the stories, right? I like to see the stories. I like to understand where they're coming from before they got on the track. Like, how much work did they put in? Was their mental preparation proper? Was their physical preparation proper? And you see all of these things happen. And even if you have an expectation, none of the expectations happen this weekend. The things that everybody expected, out the window. It's just fresh, new, clean. Everybody just came out the gate swinging.
That's awesome. I mean, that's off-road racing in general.
Yep.
It's like everybody every year goes, well, who do you think is going to win the Mint? I'm like, dude, honestly, I don't know.
Yep.
These group of 10 or 15 guys that's probably within the realm, but case in point was that Luke McMillan won it last year, and I would not have said he was going to be a top 5 finisher because of the level of competition.
Well, back in the day, you would have picked, like, let's just say a Mears or a Stewart or somebody like that to be able to win, and you didn't have the depth of the field.
Yeah, which is really cool, and like, it's a level of competition, but then you see the battle out on the track, and that's what I enjoyed the most was, like, there was contact.
Yep.
There was a lot of drama with the course, right? There was, it was hard to walk away from it because you're like, okay, it just changed. Everything just changed again. And it was changing in the front. It was changing a lot in the back, though.
Oh, because everybody was working up?
Yeah.
See, that's so cool, man. Well, we really appreciate Jim Beaver giving us a call in. We're going to take another commercial break. Then we're going to dive pretty hard into Matt's backstory. Maybe we'll talk about your brother a little bit, too.
We should.
All right. So, like I said, we're going to go to commercial break again real quick. We'll be right back.
Shock Therapy, the premier UTV suspension tuning company. We test daily with the leading manufacturers in the industry to perfect our shock tunes and race-proven components for all UTVs. Whether it's high-speed racing or slower trails, we have a suspension tune that is perfect for your driving style. Visit shocktherapist.com to improve your ride today.
You ready to test these tires out? I was born ready. Let it rip.
Zollinger Racing builds the best aftermarket products available. Products for your UTV or snowmobile, including billet radius rods, billet tie rods, billet steering knuckles, billet steering racks, alternator kits, and much more. All manufactured in the United States in-house at their headquarters in Nibley, Utah. Travis Zollinger and his team test in some of the most brutal conditions, racing in places like the Best in the Desert Mint 400, Ultra 4 King of the Hammers, UTV World Championships, and many more. Visit ZollierRacingProducts.com and use the code DIRTLIFE to get 10% off. Zollinger Racing, the best products, period. Yeah, finally, we got Lance from Solderweld in the studio. Thanks for coming down, bud. Hey, why don't we just record a commercial now?
Yeah, why not? So good to be here, man. It's been a lot. I've been trying to get down here forever, and I wanted to talk about the off-road kit.
Dude, I love those things. I got it in my pack.
Yeah, we're running hundreds of vehicles now running them, whether it's a UTV or some guy's got it in a backpack on his motocross. He's got everything he needs to make a fix right there on the fly, out on the trail, or in the desert, whatever it is.
Well, since I've already used one, I kind of know what to use it for, but explain what it does.
All right, so let's pull one out real quick. You've got your aluminum rods. Remember, they're rods, right? So, light torch, small torch. You can throw it in there or throw it on the rig with your flux. It decontaminates and cleans like, let's say, a radiator. You get a random rock chip runs through as you're racing. You get a rock chip in a radiator. You got to fix it right there or you're out of the race.
You can patch it up.
You can patch it up. It's all good to go.
Yep.
Your hot block, heat absorption putty. So it keeps you from getting burned, number one, as well as keeps the heat from traveling. So it's really nice.
I've used this not even to fix anything, so that stuff works so good, man.
Listen, it's easy. It straps in nicely so that you have everything you need in one little place, and you don't have to carry a big bag in
It's like a first aid kit for your vehicle.
Yeah, chase trucks have it as well, so that if they need to make a fix on the fly, they can get it done and get it done quick and get you back in the race.
Dude, those things are so cool. All right, so it's at Solderweld on Instagram, Facebook, and solderweld.com.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, bud.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. We are back. Thank you guys again very much for joining us tonight. John Huppert's actually commented in while we were talking about the NASCAR stuff, and he said Jimmy Johnson is who put people can point that came out of off-road racing, and he's right. Like the amount of people that can transcend or move into different genres of racing is pretty phenomenal, and Jimmy Johnson was one of them. So really appreciate John chiming in there. So now, man, this has been an awesome show, man. We've learned a lot from all the people that have called in. But I'd like to get a little bit deeper into Matt Martelli's story. I think a lot of this is going to be him and his brother. But, man, let's just start off. How did you even get involved in off-road? Because you grew up with skateboard and stuff, right?
Yeah, but growing up in Southern California, it's like...
Well, didn't you start off in Michigan or something?
Yeah. Me and my brother were born in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and we moved to San Diego when we were 12. And
okay, so you had, yeah.
So, man, it was the 80s, and so, like...
Dude, what a culture shock, though.
It was, but it was like, if you were a young male, it was like dying going to heaven, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
They were like, oh, here's your three-wheeler, kid, and we're going to the truck races, and then we're going to go to Glamis, and then we'll go to Baja, and, I was just like, okay, this is awesome.
Like, holy crap, yeah.
Like, where's the bad part, right? So, no, I feel really fortunate that we moved to El Cajon, in Southern California in the 80s, and it was just on back then. And
yeah.
And everybody was...
That was like an opportune growing time.
Yeah, and everybody, like, the neighborhood was super cool. It was back when, like, you would disappear for a day and a night and nobody worried about you. They're like, he'll show up.
Now you can't even walk down the street and play outside.
No. So, we just got dropped into it, started, going to the races and growing up around people that raced and, just right away just got indoctrinated to it. So surfing and skateboarding was also a part of the culture here. And, we always did both. It was like, when there were waves, we were surfing.
Yeah.
Then we were, out at Glamis or Ocotillo or, going to Baja with people as kids, and then just growing up in it.
Yeah, it's really cool. And that Southern California atmosphere really breeds it. And then, like, motocross and different things like that existed. So let's fast forward, because that's a long tenure, we'll call it. Like, you go through your teens, you're doing all this stuff. I mean, when did you first get really introduced, when you were like, you know what, maybe I'm going to hang up the skateboard, or maybe I want to just really focus on the dirt and off-road?
Well, what happened was I had started Mad Media with the goal to just focus on action sports, right? And
do you remember what time frame this was? Like, maybe?
Yeah, it would have been early 90s, right?
I got it.
And and we did, and we grew it to, we were, one of the largest action sports agencies, and like Alex was talking about earlier, Osiris Shoes was one of our clients.
Yep.
And so it was great, but we've quickly realized, like, we kind of hit a ceiling financially with the brands, and we wanted to do more. We wanted to do bigger things, and their kind of mindset was like, oh, that's too much money, and the budget has to be this, and kind of short-sighted, to be honest with you, because a lot of the bigger brands, the Quicksilvers, the Billabongs, they could afford it.
Right.
But just there wasn't a precedent for it, right? Other than, I would say, X Games, right?
And that's kind of when DC was coming up as a shoe brand as well.
Oh,
right?
yeah, DC was well on their way,
So fun fact before you go too far into that. So I moved to Southern California in early 2000s, and I was just getting out of college, and I was just kind of getting my feet wet, and I had a computer science degree, so I started working on websites for different action sports companies. I saw the same level that you saw, like there was a cap, right? They can only afford so much, and it wasn't because the companies didn't have money, it was because the brands they couldn't go any bigger, right? But I remember seeing you guys and your name and how immersed you guys were in the culture, and I kept thinking to myself, man, that would be such a rad company to work with. Yeah. And so now, we're talking 15 years later, but it's a awesome opportunity for me to be able to sit next to you and have this conversation.
No, I appreciate that, and likewise, it's it's really cool when I talk to other people who have come up through action sports, because we take the lessons that we learned in that culture and we apply them to everything we're doing now in off-road culture. So we just hit this point where we're like looking for the next thing, and we loved off-road. The problem was that off-road had kind of an old man image, right? And so it as a young, as a
You
young,
mean coming from like the Ivan Stewart kind of thing?
yeah, even after Ivan Stewart, because as the factories pulled out, it was older, wealthy guys who could afford
That's why.
the top vehicles.
Got it.
So like, I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but when some old fat dude that's bald gets out of the car and he just won the race,
It's a little less appealing.
yeah, and you're a kid, you're like, that's not me.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not cool.
Bryce Menzies is a little more relatable to the kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Bryce is a great ambassador. But so, we started poking around and looking for young athletes to get involved with, and we found this young driver named Brian Eichler, and we went to him and we said, hey, we're thinking about doing a film, like a skateboard film, but for off-road, and we want just it to be about young people and show this side of it to try and stimulate the whole thing.
How was that reception? Like, you're crazy.
No, he got it,
Oh, okay,
because
cool.
a lot of the kids saw, even if they didn't skate, they saw skate films, they understood what it was.
Oh, okay.
And then I could also show them, I'm like, hey, these are the things that we do, and so they were, all about it. But it was really funny because Brian's a real talented driver, ended up going into NASCAR for a bit, but also very humble. And so one day we're out filming, and I was all stoked on a turn he did and got up on three wheels, and it was an incredible shot. And I'm showing him, like, this is cool. And he looks at me and goes, you should meet my friend Andy.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And like the next week, he introduced me to his friend Andy McMillan, who was another young driver and was still in Class 1 at the time. And so we started doing some stuff with Andy, again, under the idea that, we were going to make a film about off-roading, but focus on these younger drivers. And Andy's dad, Scott, spent some time with us, and he goes, I want to talk to you about doing more work with my son and helping him go up into trophy trucks. And I'm like, okay, this sounds good. And that really gave us that re-immersed us into off-road culture at really the top level, so it was like, literally, hey, come with me. And I'm like, I should probably film this. There really wasn't a plan. And
the opportunity was amazing, though.
Opportunity was amazing. And I had a blast, and I can't speak higher of the McMillans. They're fantastic people. But, this Andy's first year of trophy truck racing was a disaster. The whole year was a disaster, and lots of different reasons, but mainly it was lack of prep of the vehicle that was coming from Robbie Gordon at the time, who, to be fair to Robbie, he was spread extremely thin. So we go through the whole year, and it's like cars on fire. It's a disaster, and I'm filming all this stuff, and I'm thinking, okay, this isn't a good story, right? Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to put out a film about this kid having a disastrous year? Like, how am I going to do this? And we had put up a couple of small YouTube clips, and that had been well received. And then we were like, okay, we still didn't really have a plan. So we went to the Bottle 1000 that year, and we won.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
So we created this short film called Chronicles of Bebo with Andy McMillan. And, he was like 19 when he won the 1,000, right? So it's an incredible story. So that really pulled us back into off-road. And
during that whole time, were you able to get the realism of the year, so to speak? Hard times into good times?
Not really, because I was afraid. I didn't want to show that. I was uncomfortable with showing the failure. Now, when I look at situations like that, I'm like,
realism.
I'm like, oh man, you know what?
Yeah.
You got punched in the face. Let's show it.
That's gold. Yeah.
Because when you come out of it, it makes it that much more valuable.
100%.
It's
So one thing that I'm hearing while you talk is for a lot of our audience members, we have tons of questions come in, and this is for a low-level guy like me, is how do I start a podcast, or what do I do to make my race program better, or how do we do social media? Very similar to the stuff that we talked about on Alex Stryler's episode when you called in. But one thing that I'm hearing there is the opportunity came for you at the beginning because of your work ethic and because you were putting yourself out there, even if you didn't know, even if you didn't understand, whatever it was, and those opportunities came because you worked hard and you pushed to get them the final goal.
100%.
So if any of our audience members have that, listen to that story, man, because it really goes to show that all that hard work, even if you thought you were going to fail that year because the content wasn't going to be good, it turned out because you kept going.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was fun, and I really, again, to be fair, like being with the McMillans kind of takes away a lot of the fear of the things that we were doing, because even though I'm sleeping on a floor or whatever, you're with their whole group, right? And they know what they're doing, right? So, pre-running in the back of a Bronco holding my camera for 7 days, and now I joke about it, but, then it was like, well, this is what you had to do, right? Or what are you doing?
It's funny that you mentioned that because for me, I'm going to get that opportunity for my first time down in Baja, and I'm not going to have a big old camera. I'm just going to take a little GoPro with me and see what happens.
The thing, though, that I can't speak higher of is the culture of off-road racing in Baja is very special, right? And just the experience of it, there's nothing like it. Like people always try and pit the Baja 1000 against the Mint 400, and they're two entirely different races and two entirely different experiences, right? And me, as one of the owners of the Mint 400, I'm going to the Baja 1000. I'm going to the Baja 500, and in my free time, I'm going to go ride in Baja, right? So it's not an either or; it's a both. Like I said before, simultaneously, this culture started in Baja and it started in Nevada, really, but in America.
Bred by passion.
So both are important.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend, like, whether you race or whether you just want to go down and check it out, do it.
Yeah.
Because it's a magical experience. You're going to have a blast. It's better if you go down with people who can kind of show you the ropes, because it's a little bit confusing once you get there, right? But it's amazing. Food's amazing. People are amazing.
I'm so excited, dude.
The whole experience is amazing. Beautiful country as well.
We had a couple comments come in. Lucretia said, I'm still in awe of the video you did for Emily and I. Hopefully we can do more.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That's back to the storytelling thing. We got the opportunity to do this video last year that highlighted, two women that are racing, and we are excited about it. Like, some people would look at that and be like, well, it's not Bryce Menzies or it's not a trophy truck. I'm like, no, this is somebody who's Lucretia, who's built her program herself, and got to the point where she's gotten some support and some sponsorship.
Yep.
And she's, like a lot of the other women that are racing currently, is showing women that they can do it, that they can not just come and show up and be there, but compete at the highest level.
Yep,
and that's
family
really
support,
cool.
everything down the line, man.
Awesome family, and no, Lucretia's awesome.
The story is good. Plus, she's an OG, dude.
Yeah.
And Alex Strahler also commented and said, Matt, what did you ride back then, like when you got your first, maybe when you were in the Cajon zone? He said his first bike was a 1976 with a Hodaka Dirt Squirt, the worst dirt bike in the world, but he loved it.
That is not the worst dirt bike in the world.
Oh, you had a worse one?
No, but it's actually a funny story. There's a guy in the neighborhood who was the motorcycle guy, right?
In your neighborhood growing up?
And so, like, you go down to him, you give him your money, whatever money you had, and he goes, well,
this is what you can get.
Pick out of this pile, right? And the guy was actually a pretty nice guy, especially to the kids. And I remember going to him, and he was actually trying to get me to buy this. It was a combat. It was a Hodaka. It was a combat wombat, right? Mm-hmm. And I looked at this thing, and I'm like, I don't want this thing. This is old, right? This thing's old, right? And I'm looking at this Honda, and I'm like, well, no, I want the Honda. And he's like, what? And I don't even remember what version of the Honda it was, but because it had plastic instead of a metal tank and all this stuff. And so that was my first bike, was like a Honda 125 or something.
Oh,
right?
really?
But it's funny because that Combat Wombat now, this is probably worth like 40 grand.
Oh,
right?
man.
So I screwed up there.
Bad move.
Yeah.
You're only a little kid, though. You can't fault yourself too much.
I didn't know anything
Dude,
at that point.
That's hilarious. Did you like ride and race motocross or no?
I never raced. We rode. It was just that's what everybody did.
Yeah.
You know, everybody had a bike. You know, if you were cool, you even had a 3-wheeler.
Yep.
You know, my cousin had a 3-wheeler, and I would borrow it all the time.
Just like you talk now, like everybody's got a Trail 70 and all that stuff now, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Let's fast forward a little bit then. So when you're in Southern California, do you decide to go to school? Like, where's the next kind of steps because you're starting to get into filmmaking?
Yeah, well, so I got into filmmaking because of skateboarding. You know, you stand out around long enough at a skateboard park and somebody's going to hand you a camera.
Right.
You know, and go, hey, film
Watch me.
You know? And so I think I was 14. I think I was 14.
So pretty young still.
Yeah. And again, super fortunate. You know, we're in the neighborhood one day and some kids are like, hey, we're going to Del Mar. You want to go? And I'm like, where's that? Literally, you're in Elk. I don't know. I'd never, you know.
But it's only 20 minutes up the road.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, yeah, do you have a skateboard? And I'm like, no. And I literally took my BMX bike, traded this kid for 2 skateboards, one for my brother and one for me. And then, like, a few days later, we're in the back of a car, you know, going to Del Mar. We show up.
Nice.
And they're like, you don't have any pads? I'm like, I don't even know what we're doing, dude. You know? And you know, get into Del Mar, and I'm like, holy shit, I definitely don't know what I'm doing, right? But you figure it out.
Probably the excitement level was still up high, though.
Oh, God. Like, you know, skating the old pool at Del Mar was something I was super glad that I got to experience. And the good, the bad, you know, having Tony.
That's before they took everything out.
Yeah, having Tony Alva scream at me to drop in.
Quit being a pussy.
It's just like, what? You're like, I don't understand what's going on here, right? So, but, yeah, everybody rode, you know, everybody skated, everybody surfed, you know, and it was just this thing.
And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I can document this?
Yeah, and I didn't even have that notion. It was older kids, you know, skateboarding who were like, hey, I'm going to do this. Will you film me?
Yeah.
Like, sure, right? And then they would look at it and they're like, you suck. You need to do, you know what I mean?
Trial by fire.
And then in all of that, you know, there were these guys who were trying to make their way as professional photographers and professional, you know, cinematographers. And so, you know, when Stacy Peralta shows up, he's got like a legit camera. I'm just sitting there watching him going, okay, I'm going to copy you, right? Like, and I literally like remember like going, oh, I'm holding the camera wrong and trying to hold this, I think it was a 8 millimeter camera. The way he held his, well, the reason he had to hold his was this big, right? So it's just all monkey see, monkey do, and learning from each other. And, you know, you get better and better, and it helps when you're passionate about something you're into. And it just, you know, keeps going and keeps going. So, yeah, I worked for skate brands, surf brands. I went to college for graphic design and mass communications. I interned at as many places as I could. You know, really dozens of different creative disciplines, and then worked at agencies. And finally, I got to a point where I'm like, I started Mad Media because the agencies had a lot of discipline and planning, right? They were very
a lot of times that hinders execution.
It did. What it really screwed up was the trends were changing so fast, right? And especially in action sports, right? So that I work at an agency that does a 2-year campaign, and they're like, we're done.
Right.
For 2 years. We already shot it.
Yeah.
And that's how they were operating. And in skateboarding was the opposite.
It's like magazines compared to the internet now, yeah.
Yeah, but skateboarding was the opposite. Skateboarding was like, okay, whatever the best photo is the ad we're doing that month, right? Yep. And
quick turnaround.
Yeah, very quick turnaround, very, very off the hip. And so I just felt like, you know, I could blend those two worlds.
To me, that seems like it matches your personality a lot better, too, because you're such a forward thinker and a go-getter. Like, you want to keep working, like, get it done, get it out.
Yeah, but you also have to be ready to adapt. Like, everything's going to change, especially when you're working with youth. You know, like look at social media now. It's like, you know, why is TikTok going as big as it is? It's not because a bunch of old dudes are like, we're going to make this thing da 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 da. It's
Right.
because a bunch of kids took that and they're like, we like this format. We're going to show each other dancing or whatever they're doing, right?
Yep.
And it works for what they're trying to communicate, right?
Yep. Makes total sense.
So it's always the youth that are driving those paradigm shifts and those changes. So, you know, I started Mad Media with the idea that we could bridge those two worlds and create a hybrid agency.
And in your youth, you were at the forefront of that, and that's some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. Was there was some integral times or some milestones that happened. You wanted to start your own thing because you wanted to be able to have the creative freedom. But when you got that creative freedom, there's always you always second guess yourself, right? You're like, oh shit, should I have done that? But then what was the first standout opportunity that you were like, yep, this is it. I'm glad I started this.
You know, there wasn't one. There were a lot of different ones. You know, like I was really lucky to get taught by a lot of people that were pretty remarkable, you know, in their knowledge, right? And it goes all the way back to my high school, going to Helix High in La Mesa, and they had a ROP graphic design program that was team taught by two teachers. And the younger teacher, Rick Dirk, really mentored me, you know, and he's still a friend to this day. But he exposed me to a level of creativity that was mind-blowing. But he also, you know, it was connected to skateboarding. So I at a young age, I met these guys who were really doing it. This photographer named Dan Harold Stewart, who to this day is one of the most prolific skateboard photographers in the world. And, you know, I was a little kid walking around carrying his camera equipment and being a nuisance, but I was soaking up everything he was doing.
Yeah, like a sponge.
You know, there was a famous photo shoot that I was allowed to go on because I was friends with Matt Hensley, and a real famous photo that got taken in Cardiff. And so we go to the spot, and you know, Dan told us what time to be there and how everything's going to go, and we're like, what does it matter? What does it matter? You know, Matt Hensley's going to do this trick. It's going to be dope. You're going to get the photo. Like, what does all this other extraneous stuff matter? So we get there. Matt Hensley does the trick in like 2 tries, nails it. They get the photo, right? And this is before there was digital. And we're like, I'm standing there going, look, we got it. We're done. And Dan goes, nope, come back tomorrow. And we're all like baffled.
Details.
Right? We're like baffled. We're like, how can he nailed it? How can you get it any better? So we come back the next day, and it was a ledge trick, right? And all the bushes in between the ledge and the wall were cut down, and the wall was painted.
Whoa.
So Dan, that night, cut all the bushes down and painted the wall because he knew he could get a better shot.
Wow.
And he made this iconic shot that was cover of Transworld magazine. And so it's, you know, things like that, experiences like that just taught me so much.
Yeah. That's a completely different mentality and a mindset that really doesn't exist much these days. It's just shoot it and forget it, right?
It does. I see it in certain places. I see it in photography. I see it in filmmaking, you know.
But it's a different level.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%, man. Knowing that and understanding I don't even know what to call it, trial by fire and education that you received in the real world doing these things and being a newbie on the scene. How does that translate into some of the projects that you've done? Because you've done fantastic projects, and we'll just talk about the one that I consider your guys' breakthrough and that Alex was talking about, like the Gymkhana stuff that you did. You know, Ken Block has his own media team now, but you were able to start that.
Yeah. That was a skateboard film with a car.
Right.
I mean, that's really what it was. It was funny because, you know, Ken and I go back to like 1989, I think, 88 or 89. It was when we first met, when he started his first company, you know, and then consequently sold that and started DC Shoes. And, you know, Ken's, like, I can't speak higher of him from a business aspect. He's a marketing genius, branding genius. You know, what he did, what him and his partner Damon did with DC Shoes was unparalleled for the time. And then he sold it, and then he decided to go rally racing, which is where we came in, right? And it was really cool. We were trying to just get people to understand rally. And, we had started doing
people that didn't understand rally to understand rally.
Yeah, we were trying to expose it because, it costs over $1 million a year to do. And if it's getting no exposure, nobody gets any sponsorship, similar to some of the challenges that we have in off-road racing today. So we started going out and filming the races. But what we quickly began to understand is that it was difficult to capture all the right moments in an uncontrolled environment.
Oh.
So we were running around, trying to capture these little details, these little moments where something incredible would happen during the stage of that rally. And it was really difficult because the timing and, sometimes he's during a race, so he's hitting the race line. That doesn't look wild. He's not hitting the BJ Baldwin swinging out sideways line, right? So, we had this idea of like, hey, what if we did this? What if we created a skate film with a car, right?
In a controlled environment.
Yeah, and then Ken is one of those guys who he's got a great creative mind. He never stops thinking. And so he had found this driving discipline called Gymkhana, right? And he had showed it to me, and frankly, I really wasn't impressed. I was like, it looks kind of gay. It looks kind of weak that these people are driving around obstacles. And he's like, yeah, but what if we do this with a 600-pound or 600 horsepower four-wheel drive rally car? And I'm like, yeah, but like all these things, like those are whack. And he's like, he's trying to explain it to me. He's like, imagine four-wheel drive burnouts, right? Imagine these things. And then I'm like, okay, like let's try it. Then it was, we need to find a location. We need to start putting things together. And, we knew about El Toro because some of the other guys who were in drifting had used it. And they actually did Gymkhana competitions there, right?
Yeah.
But they, again, were catering to the lowest, not the lowest common denominator, but people who had low horsepower cars. It was about the discipline of driving, about car control, right?
Right.
And we wanted to create something that was
extravagant.
Yeah, and wild, and that would make people go, okay, I need to look at this more. So we went out there and we shot for a few days, and he had some stunts, we had some stunts, and
when you see these kind of things, like if you have these ideas and you see them actually the execution happening, are you like, wow?
Yeah, there were definitely some wow moments because one of the interesting things, this should be like a history of digital filmmaking, because there's a Panasonic camera that had just come out, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the features that it was the first kind of affordable camera that could shoot slow motion, shot 60 frames per second. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge deal. And like, it was really funny because we got our hands on those cameras. Not only were we one of the first people on the West Coast to get our hands on those cameras, but we are the dumbest people that would take them into the dirt, right? So we're like out at rally, events in the kill zone, just getting rocked to shit, right? And but we were able to capture these moments because slow-mo changed everything, right? And
you can see the precision a lot more.
Yeah, and so that coupled with, my brother's editing skills and attention to detail, and just, and even, going back to doing donuts, that's a funny story. Is everybody looks at the Segway and the donuts like a normal thing, right? We got to that point, and we had this idea, and to make it more drastic, and nobody would do it. Everybody's like, well, I'm not doing it. Like, there was a guy that worked for us at the time, and he'd agreed to do it.
To get him on the Segway to move a little bit?
Both me and my brother were shooting at that time.
Right.
And nope, all of a sudden he's like, nope, too scary, too sketchy, right? So I'm sitting there, and I'm talking with Josh, and we got to do it, and he goes, well, I'll do it. And I'm like, oh, man. If he gets hurt, my mom's going to kill me.
Oh,
right?
crap.
And so he did it, like full on, balls out, like, all right. It's easy to look at stuff like that now and be like, oh, it's not a big deal. It was I was shaking.
Right.
He was shaking. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen. Nobody knew. I mean, that was one thing, too, that people have to understand is, like, we went to, or Ken went to Court Crawford and had him build this insane Subaru, right? With an engine that's going to blow up at any moment because it's putting out so much horsepower. And we just didn't know whether anything was going to work. And I remember doing the opening sequence where the car takes off and it does this big high-speed drift. Well, there's lips in the concrete like 8 inches, 6 inches tall. And I keep telling Ken, like, hey, you got to watch out for these lips because it might flip you and roll you. And in that first car,
or break something or whatever.
All it didn't have a full roll cage. I just had one bar.
Oh.
Right? So it was we were not like, hey, here's the safety plan in that first one. Like, we had fire extinguishers, right?
Dang.
And we're like, we know where the hospital is, right? So, yeah, it was fun. But, yeah, after looking at the footage and replaying it, I'm like, okay, we had this is something people haven't seen before.
Yep.
And especially the style that we brought to it, which came from skateboarding, came from, there's a wide angle lens that we use that's referred to as the death lens in skateboarding, where you're right up on the guy skateboarding, right? Big fisheye lens. That's a signature of skateboarding. So we were taking that same tactic and applying it to what we're doing. And it's funny, I still use some of those cinematography techniques today.
Yeah.
So yeah,
they're so cool though. We were just talking about the other day how cool it is to be able to use those same qualities to be able to produce stuff. One of the things that I think is cool about all that is it hadn't been done before. Had you guys not have the creative mindset to be able to go execute it, and a creative person as well like Ken Block, it would have been hard to push through that. And so he really gave you guys the creative freedom to produce this.
Yeah.
And then it takes another level and hits another level, and you produce all these different things, and then XP1K with the Polaris stuff comes out with RJ Anderson.
Yeah, and XP1K was a great evolution because, again, I'm once I realized, our takeaway from Gymkhana wasn't that we were special and that we knew something that nobody else knew. What our takeaway was is that, we had the opportunity to take the best drivers, the best vehicles, in the best locations and do these incredible, films. And we still do. And we still look for those opportunities.
Insanely incredible,
right?
yeah.
And so, fast forward to XP1K, and it's like, I'm looking at these vehicles and I'm like, dude, like, we can do a lot with these. And, funny backstory is that the location for the first XP1K was originally going to be Rick Huseman in a Pro 4 before he died. And so I had picked the location. I actually had the project funded. Like, we're in the beginning stages of planning. And actually I was talking to Rick and Rick's brothers about actually building a separate car other than his race car so that if we destroyed it, it wouldn't ruin his race program, right? Because that's something people don't think about. It's like, no, you destroy a car, which you will do during those projects, and if that's your race car, you're up the creek.
And
right?
you learned that from the Gymkhana stuff,
Yeah, and everything comes together. We get this opportunity, and Craig Scanlon was running Polaris RZR at the time. And I have to give him a lot of credit. Like, he put his neck out there for it, And even when the lawyers were like, hey, we can't touch this, I remember having conversations with him, and he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, look, there's one way to do this. And if we don't do it that way, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. And he 100% backed us, and then we went on to build 4 of those, right? And it's incredible. There's still, it's funny because I have, we have, enough tricks put together now for probably the next 2 or 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter
because of the backlog of footage.
No, not just because when we go into it from a concept standpoint, we're looking at it like, what can we do with, this particular vehicle
I see what you're
platform
saying. Yeah.
that nobody's ever done before, and that will get people to understand what it's capable of. I mean, every stunt in XP1K had a purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the like, hey, it's the wall of death. Well, no, it's the wall of death because you can do that in a vehicle that has that combo of horsepower to weight, right? If it's a little bit heavier, it's not going to work.
Right.
If it a little bit less horsepower, it's not going to work, right? As well as all the other jump stunts, the backflip, all those types, all the
grinding
different things.
across logs.
Yeah, 50-50 across that skateboard trick, right?
I remember seeing it, and Alex Stryler commented in and said Gymkhana opened his eyes to the art of motorsports and social media, and it really is true because I really didn't know that much about UTVs until when I saw the Gymkhana videos, and I was kind of reintroduced to it, to like Ryan Beat and the SR1 and things like that at the time. But I thought to myself, like, I know what a Rhino is. How the hell is RJ Anderson out here doing this?
Right.
Like, to me, it was like a skateboard video with a four-wheeler. Like, I couldn't believe it. First of all, I think skateboarding is phenomenal. So second, I was like, how the heck are they doing it? And then, you start thinking, and my creative mind starts thinking, okay, how are they filming it? What are they doing on the side? Like, so I really got into it and really absorbed it because it hadn't been done. Like, that was so cool for me as a consumer of digital media to be able to see that.
Well, that was the point. The point was to turn people on to UTVs, right? That was our job that we are hired for, is, taking all the things that we learned with Gymkhana, what we did right, what we did wrong, what partners we involved, all those different things. And we went, look, like, at the end of the day, we were hired to launch the Polaris Razor platform. And I'm really proud of the fact that we did that we had the opportunity to do it. And now it's a part of history, right?
It really is, yeah.
And, the funny thing is, and this is the also the legacy of Gymkhana is, the thing that we had in skateboarding that we don't quite, well, we start to have it here. That actually, I take it back. We do have it here in certain aspects, but like in skateboarding, you make a film and then the other company makes a better film.
Yeah.
And then you make a better film. It's a war, right? And you're always just one-upping each other, whether it's style or actual craziness of the stunts, and it just proliferates like it's like an arms race, right? And that was part of why we did that. We're like, here we go. All right, somebody come do something.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah, and let's do something, And so, it's cool. Like BJ Baldwin's Recoil was a cool one. There's been a couple other cool ones, but
Ampudia's just released that one last year. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool. But I just, this is me. People are gonna think I'm being an asshole, but like really, I don't see the level of
but you can still
stunts.
appreciate it, though.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But like I look at it and I go, one of the great things about skateboard culture is they'll call bullshit. They'll go, actually that one was kind of bullshit, right? And we don't. I guess we have that a little bit.
They started doing that in FMX and freestyle motocross and videos and stuff like that too.
Yeah. Well, and FMX was they went from 0 to DEFCON 5.
Right.
So it's like when you go right to double backflips and 400-foot gap jumps, you're kind of running out of stuff you can do.
Absolutely.
Right? So it becomes more difficult. Still, you can still, do more stylized videos like, oh God, what's his name? Dirt Shark's brother.
Oh, Axel Hodges?
Yeah, I really enjoy the stuff Axel's been doing. It's pretty creative. But there's still a lot to be done. A lot of vehicles to explore, a lot of locations.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I think that can be done better, maybe you should steal this idea, is to do something that's more rudimentary. Like in Arizona, you can drive a UTV on any street. I used to go get the mail, get a burrito, like all of that stuff. So I always talked about like the idea of race to tacos, right? You have one guy racing through the desert, you got one guy racing on the street, and you all meet up or whatever it is. There's all kinds of cool creative ideas, and I think that those things are more along the lines of somebody like Axel Hodges because it's a real world environment. It's not such a scripted, put together contextual thing. So I think there's a huge, just like you said, there's still so much room for growth.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're right about context. I mean, I've yet to see, somebody jump a UTV down a giant stair set.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's capable of doing it.
100%.
You know what I mean? So the city aspect as terrain is completely valid.
Dude, it would be so cool to see that. Alex commented in again and said, in action sports, as Matt is saying, a trick must be completed for it to count. If you don't complete the trick, you can't use it in media. And that's very true, but you can have a blooper reel.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit, because we could talk about the filming and the production and all of these cool projects till the day we die. But in 2018, you guys also were interested in getting a little bit more of the business stuff going, starting these, getting a little bit more involved in the events, and you acquired UTV Underground.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, we had we were already doing the Mint 400 and very entrenched in off-road, and just like everybody else, I looked at UTVs and went, oh, that's cute.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, at that time, there wasn't a sport model. And I saw what people were doing to modify rhinos and things like that. But I kind of looked at it and went, all right, you can never make that into a proper off-road vehicle. Right. It's
a good lake mobile or something.
Yeah. Like that's, you go have beers and go the river with, right? Joey D calls me up and he goes, hey, I've seen all the stuff you've been doing with the Mint, with Race Desert at the time we were involved with that, and all the stuff you do with Mad Media. I have this website, and I think this market's going to explode. And I remember it was like, I didn't even read it. It was it's like 4 pages long on Facebook message, right? And I'm like, I scanned through it and I'm like, sounds like we need to have a beer, right?
You're like, okay.
And so we did, and he explained everything to me, and I still was like, yeah, this doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, right? And so he's like, no, you got to come. We have a test with God, what was the company? It was the First Sport UTV. The company that, it wasn't Kawasaki, but the other company that used all the green for their
like John Deere or some Articat.
It was Articat,
yeah.
Right? Thanks. So
what is it called? Articat, Textron, Articat again? Who knows?
Yeah, well, back then it was like the Wildcat,
right? Yeah, that's what it was.
And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll go to this test, right? And so I go to the test, and we get in this thing, and I'm like, wow, like, this thing does pretty good. And it was really funny because the shocks were set up all wrong, and we got back. I said, let me make some adjustments on the shock, and I'm not a shock guy. I just did some.
You just saw it, yeah.
Just a couple of the minor things, like, and just the shock collars and that type of stuff, and and then we're at Barstow, and they weren't going to let people drive, and the guy who's the engineer is driving, and he's going like 15 miles an hour. And I'm like, hey, why don't you let me drive? I've been through Barstow, Maine, in every type of vehicle you can imagine. I go, I'll take it easy. So he let me drive. And then, so we did a few runs and went faster and faster. And pretty soon I pretty much had the thing tapped out at, I think it was at 45, 50 miles an hour. But going through Barstow, Maine,
yeah, that's pretty gnarly.
At something at that point cost $12,000.
Right.
Right. At 45 miles an hour.
That's a mind changer for you.
It melted my mind.
Yeah.
And to the point, and I'm really glad it didn't work out, but I looked at the guys and I'm like, hey, do you have a dealer in El Cajon? And they're like, where's El Cajon? Right. And I was like, oh man, I should snatch this up and be the first, whatever UTV dealer in El Cajon. Didn't work out, which I'm really glad it didn't, because Polaris had also been working on their model with Robbie Gordon, yep. Right? And it was superior. It was superior to everybody's, just thought processes in general, because yep. Robbie had a knowledge base that got them further along.
Yep.
They would have probably gotten there eventually. He just got them there quicker.
Yeah, sped up the development.
And so then that vehicle came out, and once I went through that process, I'm like, okay, Joey, you got a partner now.
Going to
supercharge this thing. We're going to put you on video. We're going to build this thing up. And we went for it. And, consequently at the same time, the entries were growing at the Mint, and we very quickly were like, look, UTVs are going to cannibalize everything unless we give them their own event, and that's where we started the UTV World Championship.
It kind of all comes to fruition like just a big circle, right? Like all these little things that happen, and I think that's really true in a lot of people's environments. I came from dirt bikes and motocross and supercross, and the UTVs was what piqued my interest because of cost, and UTVs piqued your interest because of the opportunity, right? And so all of these people have a different entrance into the segment, but we all feel the same when we drive them.
Well, yeah, but the game changer with the UTV was a payment. So, like,
right.
Growing up as a kid in off-road culture, it was like you needed to know somebody. You needed to have 50 to 100 grand cash, right? And then
to even build a 10 car or whatever.
It is,
yeah.
So sand car, right? Like anything legit was, it was like this hidden world, and unless you knew somebody, there was no sign.
That's such a good fact. Like the payment is what unlocked it for everybody.
Yeah, and like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I remember looking at Joey afterwards. I'm like, this is going to change everything.
Yeah.
And then once they started coming forward with their warranty stuff, I'm like, there's no way they're going to warranty these things. And they did.
Yeah.
And then there was warranted as long as you had stock parts related to racing. I'm like, this is just, you know what I mean?
This is blowing my mind here.
So it was a paradigm shift, that still we're I don't think we've even begun to really see the true effect of it.
Yeah, I think it's just still scratching the surface. Everybody's like, oh, these cars are so big. I think it's still coming to fruition. John Huppert's also commented in and said Arctic Cat and Polaris started about 60 miles away from each other up in northern Minnesota.
Yes, very true.
Crazy how they all start,
Well, and it's weirder that how does it come from Minnesota? That's, not the application. I understand the snowmobile thing with both of them, right?
Right, yep.
But no, it's really cool, and again, I give props to all the companies out there. I mean,
every one of them.
The new Kawasaki is dope. Honda has a dope car. Yamaha's, dude, are awesome for trails. Like, there's lots of different manufacturers out there.
Yeah, the more the merrier. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. We were going to talk a little bit about branding, but I think we should probably skip that. Maybe leave that for a specific episode. I want to still kind of go on the path of your evolution and talk about when you're doing these events and understanding the UTV culture with UTV Underground. Is it just preparing you to be like, wow, you know what? We need a big event for UTVs. Maybe we'll start the UTV World Championship. Like, where does this idea come from?
I think the ideas are pretty easy. Again, coming from our background in action sports, like making the transition from being the guys who filmed the Mint for the first 2 years to being the guys who own the Mint. And to be fair, we own the Mint. We buy the Mint, and then I went to Casey Folks because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, dude.
Right.
I need your help, right? And we had a great relationship, and he was an awesome mentor. So it wasn't like we automatically switched that over, but we knew, here's the bottom line with off-road racing, right?
Well, from filmmaking to an event owner, that's a massive transition. There's got to be a lot of hiccups.
It was scary. It still is, to be honest with you. It still is scary. Like,
right.
we deal with, big number stuff and crazy stuff and lawsuits and
everything under
insurance
the sun.
And But the thing I've learned is people are always going to tell you no.
Right.
I don't know why. I don't know where that comes from, but people just want to tell you no.
Yeah.
Right. And
I hate that. I would love to people just support each other more.
And you just got to go. You just got to look at it and go, no is not a definitive answer.
Right.
Right. It's a
no means maybe.
It's a temporary roadblock, and whether it's business or life, you gotta figure it out and go forward because there really is no other option.
Yeah. Again, fun fact: a doctor walked into my hospital room when I broke my back on a dirt bike. He said, "You'll never be able to walk again." I told him, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
And never heard from him again.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Why would you say that to somebody?
Yeah. Why would you tell somebody, no, you can't do this event, or no, you can't do something? Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, it was a a lot. It still is a lot of work. Like I still wake up at 3 a.m. worrying about how we're gonna lay out the infield of the track.
Hey, so I've had like 5 or 10 people all say the same thing. You know what? I don't know if Matt sleeps. He just works and keeps coming up with these ideas, which is good and bad, right? I mean, you need sleep, but it's cool because you're the perfect person to be that pioneer moving forward.
It's one of these things where I feel blessed, to be given the opportunity, but also like, hey, there isn't anybody else that's going to do what we're going to do. We hit a point where we realize that, and we're like,
I like how you say we, though, because of the team, your brother.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no way. I mean, look, I'm the front guy. I'm the loud guy. I'm the guy who's always waving my arms out, shouting shit out. But without my brother, this whole thing wouldn't have happened.
Well, don't say it just like that, though, because I've also seen you being the event coordinator, but also taking a wrench and going to help the kid start his Polaris
sure.
170 to get out there.
No, for sure. But and to me, that's fun. It's part of the culture, right? But yeah, I have an amazing team, and now over the past few years, our cousin has come into the business, and Killian, and he's been a huge part of it.
Yeah. He's doing a fantastic job as well. We had a couple comments come in. Great people in Minnesota. Yeah, John keeps trying to get me to go to Minnesota. I send him pictures of of being all warm and cozy down here, and he goes down to Phoenix and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. And then he sends me a picture of Minnesota. I'm like, nope.
Well, listen, it's true. I mean, we're originally from Michigan, and I can speak to Kalamazoo and Detroit. It's like, dude, those are some hard-working people, and like,
absolutely.
When we're bitching about, it's gray May, boo-hoo, we're like, yeah, it's 80 degrees here,
My dad and I went up there for an event called the Extremity Games, which was my qualifier for the X Games when I raced dirt bikes, and I qualified, thank God. But when we were up there, we went to a Walmart. And my dad's just a car guy, and it's in Flint, Michigan, which is right down the street from all the auto manufacturers.
Oh, well.
And he wore a Toyota hat into Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
I thought we were going to get murdered.
Yeah.
He threw it away and went and got a different one.
This is actually a funny, true story. So the neighborhood that me and my brother grew up mostly in Kalamazoo, we had a union hall down the street.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know what a union hall is, it's when you're not working, that's where you go hang out. It's basically a bar.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so the union pays to offset your drinking costs, right? So basically it's like, oh, you're not working? Just go get drunk.
Yeah.
Right? Everything will be fine, right? So you
blow
have
off some steam.
Yeah, you have a bunch of drunk, generally angry guys because they're not working, right? So one of the pastimes for me and my brother would be we'd go to the union hall, and they would tell us, hey, go tell us where all the foreign cars are. And they'd give us a napkin and a pen, and we'd walk around the neighborhood and basically draw a schematic. Right?
Really?
Yeah. And then hand it back to them, and they would give us like $5 or whatever, and we'd hang out in the union hall and listen,
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, play video games or whatever it was. And then they would work their way up until there was enough of them and they were drunk enough, and then they would go cruising around the neighborhood, and if there was a Toyota or any foreign car parked on the street, they would just flip it over.
Holy shit.
And the cops would stand there like this because they were in the same union.
That's crazy.
Right? And it's funny because in all of that, I still fell in love back then with off-road racing by watching Ivan Stewart race the Ball 1000 on Wide World of Sports back then.
God, that is so great. John, you probably like that story. Lucretia said, you guys have done a great job. We love the Mint. So she's talking about as you acquired the Mint and how you've been able to increase the social promotion and everything, I'm sure. When we talk about having these different events, I've participated in events that you guys have done as far as the UTV World Championship. This year I'll be able to go to the Mint actually for the first time again.
Right.
So I'm like this virgin off-road guy, like you said. But to me, it's interesting to see the difference in the quality of events that come out. You have tons of different events for any type of off-road genre. But the quality and the effort that you guys put in seems like, I don't want to say this because it sounds like I'm probably demoting some of the other guys, but next level because of the promotion, the social media aspect, what you actually do, getting the warfighter made involved, expanding the classes that are available now. Like even the rally class that exists nowadays was spawned by some of the ideas that you guys have had. So that forward thinking is really interesting and should be really interesting in the evolution of all of this UTV off-road stuff in the future.
No, I appreciate that, and it's really important to us. First off, we're not interested in putting on off-road races. We're interested in putting on off-road race events.
Got it.
And there's a difference between being an event and a race. All the other races that go on, they're great. We need them, right? Not every event can be the Mint 400. It has to have this right formula, right? But conversely, what we started realizing,
and the history.
Yeah. Well, listen. I'm the first guy who will say that we were extremely lucky to get our hands on the Mint. I remember making the decision to purchase it and then trying to explain the rationale to my brother, and he was kind of pissed off at me.
I was wondering what that conversation went like.
It was pretty funny because, the opportunity came up. I just did it, and we really didn't have the money to do it at the time.
Was Josh like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's like, how in the fuck are we gonna make money off this? We're not race promoters, And I'm like, well, I have this idea, blah blah. He was pretty pissed because we were doing really well at that point with the media side of things, and we didn't have very much risk.
Hey, you got him fired up.
Yeah, but what happened was,
those opportunities don't come that often, so I get your point.
And so for me, I felt like, oh, we're buying the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't do that?
Yep.
You know what I mean? The price, didn't matter. What mattered was we got this piece of history, and also that, we could start implementing our ideas and shepherd this whole thing forward.
So before you even continue on, I'm feeling the passion right here, because you wouldn't have made those decisions had you not loved off-road so much. Like with every ounce of your body, to be able to put that mindset forward.
Listen, if I tell people, I try and explain people this. I have a guy, it's actually really funny. He's my jiu-jitsu instructor and my money manager, right? Paulo Fernando, super smart Brazilian, worked for Payne Weber. And I took whatever little money I had years ago and started investing it with him. And when I bought the Mint and told him about it, he's like, no, that's a bad idea. You should invest it into real estate. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm like, well, you don't understand. Da, 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 da. So he's been running the numbers for me ever since we got involved. And every year he's like, just so you understand, if you invested all this money every year into real estate, here's where you'd be at.
Oh.
Right? And then he's like, can I get some VIP tickets?
So it's the passion. Well, that does prove a good point, though. It's the passion that evolves the industry and gets you happy.
Yeah, and I just think that, we've been, whether you believe in a higher power or whatever you believe in, but we were built for this opportunity. We have a knowledge base that gives us a technical advantage on the media side. We're passionate about it. We love and respect the racers. We have a lot of respect for the sponsors. Like, I love the business of off-road.
Yeah.
I'm an off-road nerd. It's like, Neil Mason is right over here. And he's one of my friends, and I'm amazed with what he does. I'm like, I would just go hang out at their shop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And be like, what's this? How
just
do we
sit
do
there
this,
and learn,
right?
yeah.
Robbie Pierce from Jimco is a really good friend of mine. I was down there last week looking at his new 4-wheel drive that's coming, and basically like rubbing up on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
get ready to put up a good bed and sleep next to it.
Basically,
yep.
I mean, look, this is what we're into. It's it's this and pretty much, action sports and MMA, right? So
how does that fuel the fire for running the business then? Because you still have creative media projects. You have a few different outlets, websites, and media production and things like that. As far as your passion goes, like, how does that fuel your business decisions? I mean, you made a decision to buy the Mint 400, whether it was good or not, in other people's eyes is inconsequential at this point, but is it just passion that just drives all of this?
You have to be rational about some stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's work ethic. We're very, we came from a hardworking family. I've been working since I was 12 years old. To me, I feel fortunate that I get to do what I'm passionate about. So, pulling a 60-hour week is not a big deal for me. It's fun.
Is it one of those things? If you enjoy what you do, you never work a day, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that to a point. There's
Right.
definitely stress and anxiety, and the grind days. Like, I'm not gonna pretend like this is all rose petals and all
Right.
that stuff. I mean, it's a growing industry that traditionally hasn't ever had a race as big as the Mint 400.
Well, we're lucky to have you. I think it's phenomenal that you put so much effort back into the industry and the culture itself, because as much as people may or may not understand, all of these little things make a big difference in the end goal of us all getting out and doing off-road racing and stuff like that. Maybe we should fast forward a little bit and understand a little bit about what the future plans are for the UTV World Championship and the Mint 400. Maybe kind of talk about getting some more people out there to the upcoming events.
Yeah, first one that's up in October is UTV World Championship. So we moved that to a new venue to Havasu, which has been fantastic.
The people there were really easy to work with?
The mayor's awesome. The terrain is amazing. It's one of these things where it's like people have to remember, like, I race not as much as I want to, but, I can still consider myself a racer, and I put on thousands of miles, off-road a year, right? And so I look at things and I'm like, I wouldn't, want to race that. And that was honestly one of the challenges with Laughlin was like, Laughlin started out years ago as a bigger course and was a score race. And when it was that bigger course, I thought it was a really good course. But then we got, castrated and castrated and castrated down to what it is now. And I just look at it and I go, yes, it is a race course. Can you have fun out there? Yes, you can have fun out there, but only because you don't know that you can go race all this other stuff.
Right.
So I think part of our job as race promoters is to go out and do the good fights with the BLM and the cities and whoever it is, right? And go, hey, we want to race in this area. How do we do it?
Right.
Right. And we're pretty constantly doing that. And so Havasu has been fantastic to work with. And
one of the rumors that I heard is that the track or the course is going to be a little different this year.
We'll always tweak the course, and we've asked for some bigger course stuff. And so that timeline is dictated by the BLM.
Gotcha.
But I would say this, like, the whole world has changed. I remember coming into this as a new promoter, and everybody was like, they're going to shut the desert down. The whole thing is over. Any day it's going to happen. And do you hear that anymore?
No. Actually, no. Especially with all of the people trying to get out more.
And I think that's part and parcel of what we've done. I think it's part and parcel of what Dave Cole's done with King of the Hammers. We've scaled these events up to the point where now we have some economic power.
Got it.
And now, instead of begging, we can go in and say, do you want us here? Do you want the $40 million of impact that the Mint 400 brings to your city? Cool. Then let's talk business.
Right. Got it. It makes a big, big difference. And again, I can just see it. Like, that is all. When you talk about those big numbers, it's a real big business, but it's fueled by passion.
Yeah.
That is super cool.
Well,
man.
let me throw out another number too. Okay. How many billions of dollars do you think that are in UTVs are sold? Billions.
Honestly, I probably couldn't even guess. Right. Let me just say 30.
It's a little bit lower than that, but it's multiple billions, right? So we're talking about, and especially when sport side by side is 7 years old, right?
That's insane.
So
huge.
So when you start thinking about the paradigm shift that this vehicle and really the catalyst for it has been off-road racing, because the performance vehicle, there was no need for the performance vehicle, right? Southern California created the need for that performance UTV for every dude who went out and modified, a Rhino.
Lucretia and the Rhino.
Exactly.
Yep.
You guys created a multi-billion-dollar global industry.
Yep.
Right? And that's what Southern California culture has a history of doing that with skateboarding, hot rods, music, food,
moto.
It keeps going. And
It
part
really
of
does.
Part of it is that, we have pretty perfect weather year round here, so we're not cooped up, so we're out doing stuff.
Yeah.
But part of it is just the DNA of Southern California.
Man, that is phenomenal to think about. And to think about how much further it can go.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, right?
I mean, just think about the fact, okay? Just think about the fact 7 years ago, actually it's less than that, 5 years ago, it had been Mitch Guthrie's first race at UTV World Championship.
Juniors?
Right.
Yep.
And he just went to Dakar 2 years ago.
That's insane.
How
cool.
short that timeline is, right?
Yeah. It's so speedy when you look at it, for like when you reverse, like back at, like the hindsight's 2020.
Or yeah, Seth Quintero raced his first race in the youth race with us, right? Won the youth race, won the 250, right? And is racing in Dakar. Not only racing in Dakar, but they're holding it to top people, top racers. I was fortunate. I was there 2 years ago, and I was standing with some of the OG guys, that have won Dakar before, and they're just like, they're blown away. How are these kids so fast?
Yep.
And I was like, because they started when they were 6.
And calculated, though, too. It's really cool to see that. And those guys are coming up. Now that I think about it, ever since the UTV World Championship was the concept came out, I've never missed a year. Yeah. So we were talking about how I've never been to Baja. The UTV stuff is actually what cultivated me.
Yeah.
Like, I love all this other type of desert racing, but I'm the perfect example.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, look, and
I'm an old guy. I'm not a young guy like Seth Quintero.
Yeah, you were talking about, like, what does the future hold? And I think, I'm super optimistic. We have a huge future. Mint 400 is going to continue to grow. We're going to actually do more Mint 400 level races, in different areas. We've been looking at California, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. There's a lot of land in the U.S. that we haven't even touched.
I'm a big fan of Triple Crown events, man.
Yeah. Well, for us, we're not going to stop with, okay, cool, 3 events or 4 events. Whatever the market will bear. Again, I use the UFC as a barometer. I mean, there was a point where it was like, oh, we should have 1 fight a year. Right?
No way, yeah.
Now how many fights do they have, right?
Numerous.
So it took them 15 years. But, we already have a bigger culture globally. We have larger sponsors than they do currently, right? So our pattern or our trajectory is much more stable.
That is so cool to think about.
In our sport, like, you got to remember the UFC. I was at UFC 3, I think, right? And they shut the lights out. We're on an Indian casino, and like the federal government was like showing up. The attorney general was showing up, going, "This is illegal human cockfighting, right?
We don't want this."
And now you look at where they're at today.
Yeah.
And so to me, I look at that and I'm like, they did a great job. We take a little bit of inspiration from them and really everything else. So UTV World Championship, same thing. We're in October. It's going to continue to grow. We just opened up registration, so get registered.
Dude, I got to get up there and register, man.
Yeah, you qualify in the order that you register. And then, it's going to be an exciting year.
Dude, if you already opened it up, I'm probably way back in the pack already.
This year, we're going to have Tech and Contingency downtown Havasu.
Oh, nice.
So kind of like the Mint, like a mini version of the Mint.
That's cool. In Lucretia's hometown.
That's right. So then Mint 400, different course. We've got actually 2 courses now. The bikes will race on their own course. So that's going to help us, with the timing so that we won't have to time people out on the bikes.
Right. Space out some of the dust a little bit, give it a little bigger course.
Yeah, just give them, a bike course is different from a car course.
Yeah, 100%.
We want to give them a good course. And, more than anything, the thing I hate the most about being a promoter is having to take people off the course, right? Like for time.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we only have a 48-hour closure with the BLM. So there is a time limit to what we can do. It's not like Baja where it's like 3 days later and you're still going. Go for it, man. But we are giving the bike racers more time by separating their course, which will run the same time on Saturday that we're racing the cars and trucks.
Oh, cool.
And then, we're going to have qualifying down in Prim, so everybody will be able to watch qualifying. That'll be super exciting.
That'll be super cool.
And we're talking about format for qualifying. We've been talking with a lot of the racers to see if they want to change it up and not have it be one vehicle at a time, maybe two vehicles at a time, make it interesting. So we'll see what they say. We always go back to the racers and try and get feedback from them so that they're happy with with the format.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Question just came in. You're probably going to answer it in Polaris, so I'll be the argument guy over here. Tyrone said, "What's up, fellas? What is a nice side-by-side for a big guy?" So
Cowie.
Yeah, I was going to say Cowie too. Those things have so much room inside.
Yeah.
Let's give him two options though. What's the best Polaris vehicle that's got a big? Do the new XP Pros or whatever they're called have
I have it right now. I have a 2019 Polaris S Turbo, right? And I think their new cars are really cool, right? But that car was like really the car for me.
Like
right?
custom fitted for you almost?
Yeah, I mean, look, with a four-seater, it has, to me, the right wheelbase, the right amount of horsepower. Like, really, the only thing I do to it is I cage it, seats, put all the safety stuff in it. And tires and wheels, and then adjust. Basically go to our friends at Shock Therapy, set the shocks up, and that's it.
Yeah,
everything else is stock.
That's cool, man. So Tyrone, you do have some options, man. But those Cowies, I've sat in one. I haven't got to drive one yet, but I've sat in one, and they have massive amounts of room.
Yeah, I actually I've driven one at the Cowie demo, and then Cowie gave us a loaner. We did a whole review on it, and that was one of the things that I liked the most about it.
Interior?
Yeah, just
cockpit.
How much room, and then also the stance of the car, the way the car sat and drove, I thought was really good. It's a really well-built vehicle, so that's definitely one for the big guys.
Yeah, exactly. And when I say I never drove it, I never got to drive it at race pace. I got to drive it around Geyser Loop, and we were getting with it pretty good, but still, I think that would be a good one for you, bud.
That would be my only complaint with the Cowie is that it's a non-turbo car, and I know they have an aftermarket turbo coming.
Yeah.
So, not everybody is like us sickos out here in Southern California and needs crazy horsepower, but
well, Tyrone is SoCal, but Tyrone, they do that new kit is that turbo kit that Matt's talking about is on its final stages of development, so it'll be out pretty soon, hopefully. So if that's something that you're interested in, man, it'd be a good solution for you. John Huppers also asks, yes, the S is a great car. Have a 19S now and thought a 21 and bringing it to AZ soon. Oh,
Nice.
He bought a 21, yeah.
Yeah, I like I said, it's like, I'll take cars and just do a lot of miles on them.
Yeah.
So we very quickly find out, what the weak points are in the car, and that Turbo S, that car platform 72 inches wide, like it's perfect.
And I think we should probably back up a little bit on our answers, as those are tuned for you or get for you, Tyrone, but every single UTV that's out right now, every single one of them is good.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what you.
One I want to give some love to is the Yamaha.
Yeah.
I got the opportunity to go back and do some trails in the Midwest in a Yamaha.
Which one did you use? The YXE?
The YXE, and I had a blast.
Yeah.
Normally like tight trail riding is cool, but like having the ability to shift up and shift down and really throw the car around, it was super fun.
Yeah, like I always tell everybody, you don't drive with the throttle on the YXE, you drive with the transmission.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's super fun. So anything you buy, man, you're going to be in really good hands no matter which one you get. All right, so let's start winding down a little bit here. You said that can you please tell everybody when the UTV World Championship is and then when the Mint 400 is?
Yeah, first weekend in October for UTV World Championship. You can go to utvworldchampionship.com and get all the details.
And you got pre-running before it. You got all the little parties and all the events and stuff happening, all
definitely.
Which are phenomenal. So we're going to be there, so you guys should definitely come check it out. And then the Mint 400?
Yep, Mint 400 is this year's first weekend in December.
Okay.
We moved it in January. We announced that we were going to move it because we wanted to be outside of the COVID window and just get back to real events,
Yeah.
So we're already north of 300 entries, which is ahead of where we normally would be. which is great. Ticket sales are like 2/3 sold through, so don't wait. It's going to be a busy. It's funny because now that things are opening up, everybody's going buck wild, which we anticipated. So, I think that it's going to end up being one of the biggest mints ever.
Yeah, I really do too. And not that people are just looking forward to going to the mint, but there's been so much industry growth in the past year and a half because of all the things that have happened that I think it's going to open up people's eyes to be able to go out there and look at stuff like this.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little bit cool out. But I think that's gonna benefit us.
Sweater weather, man. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last question that we have that's open answer is: what does the future hold for you, your brother, and these different organizations that you're part of?
I mean, we're gonna keep. Our goal with our race series is to build out a series, right?
Okay.
And so, like I said before, like I'm happy that everybody else is doing their thing, and we want them to, there needs to be all sorts of different levels of off-road racing,
Right.
But there needs to be more Mint 400s.
Yeah.
The racers want it, the sponsors want it, spectators want it, and in order for off-road racing to have a strong future, we have to control economic impact. Right. So we have to be able to go have an event in a city and, increase the value of what we just did there, drop 40 million, 20 million, eventually 100 million into their pockets locally. And that's, food, booze, hotel rooms, spending in those cities, and we do it with the Mint in Vegas. Now we need to go take that.
And it's just
to
little
other
stuff
places.
too. Like I remember at the UTV World Championship, we were like, okay, we got an Airbnb. Let's fill the house with food. And I said, you know what? Let's take a step back. And I talked to my dad, my crew chief, and different people that were with us at the Airbnb. And I said, you know what? Let's fill it halfway with food.
Sure.
The other times we're going to go out to eat and we're going to support the local businesses. And I knew I'd made the right decision when I saw your brother at the breakfast.
Well, and we appreciate that because what we want you to walk in there and tell them, hey, I'm here with UTV World Championship. I'm here with the Mint, so that they know where it's coming from.
Absolutely.
So
even if you're a spectator, not a racer, just do it.
Yeah, that I can't stress that more. Like, in order to ensure a strong future, we have to do that because if we don't play the economic game, we'll be dealing with what we've dealt with the last 50 years of off-road racing, which is going in and begging for opportunities.
100%. And even moreover, like we picked the mom and pops. We didn't pick Chili's. We didn't pick Applebee's. We picked the mom and pops, the ones that we knew were in the city that would potentially go back to the BLM or whoever it is and say, we appreciate those guys coming.
Absolutely.
So it was cool for us to see it. And then, so as far as the events go, we're going to attend all the events we can, and I hope other people that are listening to the podcast are able to do it as well and come say hi to us at the Dirt Life. Come say hi to Matt while he's walking around being busy. Actually, just give him knuckles and let him get back to work. But what about for the media company?
Yeah, I mean, look, you were asking me before about multitasking and is it hard and, all that kind of stuff. It is, but, I'm just built this way. Like, I'll go from doing accounting and working with, the accounting department and to, writing creative for the next project to, working on future plans for races. And that's just how my brain works.
That's good that you're able to pivot and shift gears like that.
I get bored. Like, I seriously, like, half this stuff came up because I'm like, all right, we have some time. What are we gonna do? You know what I mean?
Hey, we got an extra 3 minutes here.
And my brother and everybody's looking at me like, "Fuck you!" Like,
calm down,
stop.
Matt. Calm down.
But no, I mean, that's the thing is like with the media company, it's very simple. We love doing this.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna stop. Filmmaking and creating content. I'll always do that. My brother will always do it. Our group will always do it. But very succinctly, it's the same opportunity that came up with Gymkhana, that came up with XP1K, and even small projects. We want to keep doing it, but with the bigger projects, it's very simple. We want to take the best drivers to the best locations in the world and put them in the best vehicles.
Yeah.
And, there's still a lot to be done, in particular with off-road, but even other disciplines. So
that's so cool to see.
That's really our passion. And when I see the other films done, there's a lot of good stuff, that's done. But I just see things.
Dude, it's that competitive spirit that you had. Like, you got to do a video better than your other guy, and then, like, that's so like the skateboard stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah, but it's also goes back to the creativity. It's like, like I'll use the film The Joker that came out last year. It's like, look, there were a lot of films that came out last year, but there was only one Joker film.
Yep.
And that's because, the cinematographer, the director, the actor were all on the same page, and they're like, look, we're going to do our thing and we're going to send it. Same as God, what was the one I was
But those were so crazy. It was like, right borderline being a little bit to piss people off, but it was good.
Yeah,
I love that.
But like, just speaking about the visuals, or like, like the new version of Blade Runner that Deakins did, like, you didn't have to do that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, you could have phoned it in and you could have done the same BS, CG stuff. And
they went over the top.
Yeah, same with Joker. It's like he could have phoned that in and been like, well, here's what everybody's expecting. That's easy. We'll just do that, right? And they didn't do it. And so
yeah, just like when Transformers came out too. All right, so we kind of know what everything's gonna happen. We're gonna be at both those races, the UTV World Championship and the Mint 400. I gotta say, man, I'm really stoked that you were able to come on the show and hang out, especially to give us 3 hours of your time and driving. So let's just nail these rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yeah.
You didn't cheat and look at them, did you?
A little bit.
So some of them are from, I think Caden Danbury actually made a couple of these, and
nice.
John Lewis from Desert Squadron also helped out with some of these.
Awesome.
So hard shell or soft shell tacos?
Soft shell for sure.
Going
It's gotta
soft
be
shell?
corn.
Gotcha.
Old school.
Cholula or Tapatio?
Tapatio.
Chicken or asada?
Asada.
You going asada?
Yep.
What about what's the one where they shave the meat off the lamb one or whatever?
Oh, dude, that one's good, but wait till you're down there. You're going to have a taco called arrachera.
Is that good?
That one will blow you away.
All right, I'm into it, dude. Three-wheeler or quad?
Three-wheeler, it's old school.
Yeah, are you going like 185S or like 110? Are you going little tiny one?
No, like 185S with the mullet and,
yeah.
and the big gulp cup, right?
Nice, dude. You're going the full deal.
Full El Conzo, dude.
Creativity. Dunes or the river?
Dunes.
This one's actually a good one from this weekend. Cincerillo or Osborne?
Cincerillo for sure.
Dude, he was on fire this past weekend.
Kid's a savage.
Dude, if he could stay up, he would smoke everybody.
Yeah, the kid's a savage. It literally looks like he like goes out and breaks his body and his body gives up and his mind's still like, come on.
Yeah, let's go. Pizza rollers or jalapeno poppers?
Jalapeno poppers for sure.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Favorite soda?
Favorite soda? God, that's a hard one. Right now, I'd have to say like the OG Mexican sodas, right?
Ooh, you know what? That's crazy that you say that because we went to Huntington Beach. I met with Lawson Malika of AEM, and he took me to a taco spot, just normal run-of-the-mill taco spot, and they had the Mexican sodas,
The
dude.
Jarritos, yeah.
Dude.
The orange Jarritos.
That's what he got.
Yep.
And his son got a Mexican Coke. You can't beat
That's what happens if you ever date a Mexican girl.
Yeah.
That's it. It ruins you.
Because you're only getting that?
No, you're going to get that. You're going to get food from her abuela, and it changes you.
It changes your life.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Oh, man, this one we're talking about superhero movies, but what superpower would you like to have? If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, flying for sure.
Flying?
Get so much shit done.
That's true. What about teleporting?
Oh, I didn't think about that.
So we had one.
It'd just be cooler if you're flying, because if you're teleporting, nobody sees you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
To be able to fly through the air.
Right. Nobody's teleporting like this.
Dude,
right?
and could you imagine the camera angles you could get flying?
That'd be awesome. Yes, I can. We've done it in a heli.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And now drones exist too,
Yeah,
right?
the FPV drones are awesome.
Well, this one's actually probably going to be a pretty loaded question for you.
All right.
Most memorable race?
Okay, so I think I was 13. I think it was 13, and it was my first Baja 1000, and I went with my some friends in the neighborhood, and so it was like magic 80s, kind of like, hey, mom, dad, I'm gonna go to Baja with the Smiths.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, we'll be back tomorrow. Okay, I don't think they had any idea it was another country. They thought it was like Baja was like next to
Down the road.
Like that's East El Cajon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll see you later. No, that was back before it was there's no passport. There was nothing like that.
You could just go.
But no, I clearly remember that one because I remember like the parents being really weird about where the race course was. No, stand here. I'm like, what's the problem? And then a trophy truck comes by and you're like, oh, okay.
Now I get it.
You really need to pay attention. But, just the dirt and the smell of the fuel and how visceral it was.
The ambiance.
Yeah, it just made such an impression on me. I just remember going like, okay, this is something that's totally amazing, but you got to work to get to it, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most. And all I'm doing is taking down a little GoPro, but I can't wait to capture my excitement of that environment on a little camera, man.
Yeah, it's funny though because I say that's the moment, but I can tell you about a bunch of other moments. I'll tell you about one more, and I don't know what year it was. Probably 2018.
Yeah.
Or 19. So Garen Cadiente was leading the Ball 1000 overall, and he had just turned back onto the pavement, and we were filming, and we were chasing him, and so it was like somewhere around midnight, and we were just south of Guerrero Negro over on the other side. So you're driving, and there's a bunch of guys flagging, and we're like, maybe we timed this right and we'll see Garen. And he pulls out in front of us.
Whoa.
So we had about 30 minutes on the pavement, and I'm talking on the radio to Garen. He's leading the Ball 1000 overall, right? And he was, at that point, he was still pretty much a rookie racer. He'd won some races. He was doing really well. But I'm sitting there, and I'm like a kid in a candy shop. I'm like, dude, you're leading the race. You're winning the race. He's telling me to calm down, right? And we kept talking. He's like, keep talking to me. I'm a little tired. And he unfortunately he handed the truck off in Loretto to Todd LeDuc, and then the whole rear end blew out of the truck, so they were done. But up until that point, he was leading the Ball 1000, and we were the only people in communication with him for that.
And you were right behind him right then.
We were following him, right? Yeah. And I'll never forget that.
That hardly ever works out.
There's no other motorsport in the world where things like that will happen, and off-road racing is one of them.
That is so cool. That's a great story. Okay, we're going to give an ode to Robert Blanton here with his Strawberry Rendezvous. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Yeah, I have to go old school, blueberry.
Blueberry?
Yep, blueberry.
Thrifty blueberry?
No. What's funny is my uncle, my family was one of the largest fruit farmers in North America, and they did blueberries for Sherman ice cream. If anybody knows what that is, super old school, and yeah, that's
where you're at.
Yep. Real blueberries and Sherman ice cream.
Do you know what your brother's favorite flavor of ice cream is, or no?
Chocolate, probably.
Chocolate?
Yeah.
He goes opposite of you. Dogs or cats?
Cats, for sure.
Netflix or YouTube?
That's a good one. Netflix is doing dope stuff, but I've been
that
watching
F1 Driven to Survive or whatever it's called.
Yeah, there's a lot of really stuff on Netflix, but man, I've been spending a lot more time on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything, like no matter what, if you are just out there like doing a vlog for yourself and you put how-to vlog right in front of it, you're gonna shoot up, man.
Well, that, and I just there's not any rail guards on the content.
Right, exactly.
So Netflix, it's a channel, it's got to be polished at this certain level, and so that's what it is, and I think they're doing a great job with some of the content.
The creative medium has opened up more. Supercross or motocross? Oh, I'm gonna follow this up with something too.
Motocross for sure.
Going motocross?
Yeah.
That is, and you kind of already answered this, but short course or desert?
Desert, but I'll say like, and this is a throwback. People have to understand why we have short course, and we have short course.
As a media company, you got to love short course.
Yes, as a media company, I love short course. But people have to understand why short course exists, and it exists because Mickey Thompson, who owned Score,
right,
and then created Mickey Thompson Short Course Racing, created short course as a way to get in front of people, right? But short course was never the end goal. It was always like, hey, you think this is rad? come to the Baja 1000.
Yo,
right?
gotcha.
So as
A gateway.
as a tool, like short course has a huge upside to be all over the world. And really the guy I got to give some props to is Robbie Gordon and what he's doing with SST.
Oh, dude, 100%.
Because every time he does an event, I get phone calls. Hey, I want to buy one of those SST trucks and race
How
it
do
at
I
the
get
Mint.
into-
And I'm like, it's a little different than that, but yeah, it's just swipe your card, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Lucretia commented in and said the highway is the worst. It makes you sleepy, and she's talking about driving her race car on the highway. But I love my trace truck pulls in behind me and talks me through that.
Exactly. That's exactly the experience. She knows.
That's super cool. What other form of racing would you like to try? That's another loaded one for you. I mean, we'd even talk powerboat racing. You could have whatever you want, man.
I mean, I got to race a little bit of rally, but I'd like to do it in a much more powerful car than a VW Bug, because that was cool. But a little bit more horsepower wouldn't hurt. No, I have probably rally. Like rally is it's all in your head, right? Because you're not door to door with somebody else, so it's like a war with your mind, right? So that has some appeal to me, but. Yeah, I don't rally raid. I really think like that format is really cool and really challenging.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that you have a love for the dirt.
Yeah, not pavement. It's I've had some opportunities to do some big pavement races, and I looked at it and went, oh, it's going to cost this. I could race 2 Baja 1000s.
Yeah, I'll do that. Tacos or burgers?
Tacos for sure. Final
question of the night, bud. Chips and guacamole or French fries and ranch?
Chips and guac.
All day, huh?
Yeah.
Look at you Southern California guy.
Yeah.
I wonder if you spent any more time in Kalamazoo if you would have picked French fries.
Oh, for sure. I mean, dude, like growing up in Michigan, you have no idea what Mexican food is.
Yeah.
You think Mexican
Zero.
food is like Taco Bell?
Yep.
And then you come here. It's a funny story is I remember my cousin that lived here. He's like, hey, we're going to Alberto's. I'm like, whatever that is, dude.
Yeah.
And he ordered me and my brother carne asada burritos. And we sat there and ate them. We're just like blown away.
You're
we're
like, what?
Yeah. Like, so.
Man, the stuff that we take for granted down here in Southern California, or even in Southern Arizona. All right, man. Well, is there anything else that you want to tell the audience before we sign off?
No, I'm good, man. Like,
First of all, you did a fantastic show.
No, thank you. I'm stoked you're doing this. I appreciate you inviting me on, and I think it's rad. And anything I could do to help. I'd say, go off road with your friends, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you have. You have a PW50 or a UTV or a Jeep, or it doesn't matter.
Hey, so speaking on that, I went off-roading or razor riding with Steve Westfall, who's the Rockstar Energy Husqvarna team manager.
Yeah.
And he has his own razor, and the kids are kind of growing into their own. So he made them or allowed them to buy their own golf cart. Or little golf cart, whatever you want to call it, go-kart, excuse me.
Right.
Both him and his brother, Parker and Ezra, saved up $900, and they tive themselves a little go-kart, and they took that on the razor ride. When we got to the top of a hill where there was some rocks and they couldn't make it up, Steve was behind them in the razor, and they kind of like got stuck. He just nudged them along in the razor,
Nice.
got right up over the rocks, and they get to sit at the top of the hill with everybody else.
That's cool.
Living their dirt life, man.
That's right.
So, yeah, you're right. Anybody that can get out and play in the dirt is going to have some fun.
Well, especially now, like, with all the stuff that we've had to deal with COVID, I think it's more important than ever to get with your friends and family and go have an adventure out in nature. And it doesn't matter what vehicle, whether you're an overland guy or you have a Tacoma or anything off-road capable, just go for it.
Anything you can do. I even saw a Honda Civic out there.
Okay.
All right.
Little lift kit and suspension. You might be
I think he just ran it beater. But, yeah, so thank you very much, dude. You have a wealth of knowledge, and we really appreciate it. We didn't even – I mean, it's already 3 hours and 20 minutes into the show, and we didn't even approach any of the branding and the things that you can help with other people. So
we'll get that on the next one.
Yeah, exactly. So I really appreciate it. Like I said, you'll actually really enjoy next week's show. Next week's show, we're going to have David Clay, of racing tracks.
Yep.
He's got a new project that he's working on. I think Dave Cole's probably going to come on the show too, and we're going to do it from the house down in Baja.
Bitchin'.
So we'll see if we can do it live. I'm not sure, depending on the Wi-Fi down there. We'll see what we can do.
There's good Wi-Fi in spots.
Yeah, so we're going to cross our fingers and see what we can do, but it's going to be a fantastic show, and please stay tuned to that one because David's got a really, really cool project that he's working on that he's going to have some cool stuff to announce. Thank you to Matt for coming up and for helping just grow the off-road industry and off-road racing in general, man. The stuff that you do and the amount of sleep that you don't get benefits us all.
It's all good, man. It's
so
fun.
we really appreciate it. Thank you guys very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. You can always check us out on any of the audio platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, everywhere. We're on all of those networks, as well as Facebook and YouTube live at 5 on Monday nights. And sometimes we even do Instagram Live on Thursdays as well. We just had an Instagram Live with Toby Price last Thursday, so go and check that bad boy out. And thank you so much to all of our sponsors, all you guys in the audience, man. KMC Wheels, EFX Tires, Shock Therapy, the guys over at Cryo Heat, Solder Weld, and Zollinger Racing Products. You can use the code DIRTLIFE at solderweld.com. You can use the code DIRTLIFE at shocktherapist.com. And you can use the code DIRTLIFE at ZollingerRacingProducts.com. And please, like Matt said at the beginning of the show, support the people that support us because they get to give back as well. So thank you guys very much for living your guys' dirt life with us on this fabulous Memorial Day. We want to thank all of the families and armed servicemen for supporting us and giving us this awesome country that we live in. We will see you guys next week. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks for listening to The Dirt Life Show.